All right. Hello, hello. I believe that is my audio. I'm going to double check you in 1 second. But hello, Brayden here. And talking public comment around fracking near the Aurora Reservoir. So hold on one moment while we check some settings. I'll pull up the stream on my phone. And just double check the settings. I don't want there to be an echo or anything like that. We still got about 10 minutes before things get started. So, let's do this really quick. Hello, hello. Subscriptions. Where is my page? There we are. And then we click it, and we see. Just really quick. Hello, hello. Okay, there's some subscription like passive noise, so I can maybe bring this. Hello, hello. All right, we're back. When you bump your setup and you need to make sure everything's plugged in again, about like right here. Cool. Let me get my art I made in the back, my poster, and in a minute we'll. They are starting up in 7 minutes, so let me give the rundown really quick. Here in Colorado, we have something called the ECMC, the Energy Carbon. I have it pulled up right here. Energy and Carbon Management Commission, and their job is to look at new oil and gas sites and manage some of those. And in their mission, they say that they are taking into consideration public health, environment, and community needs before approving sites. But they prove 90-something% of all sites that come through their way. And you know, some sites maybe are more straightforward, but the one we're going to be looking at and talking about today is a mega fracking site, which means there's going to be 30 plus wells that are going to be stationed within 2 miles of the Aurora Reservoir. And in actuality, when you look at their drilling, they're actually going to be drilling down and then even under the reservoir, as well as under some of the neighboring houses and wildlife area. And so people don't want that near their homes, near their drinking water, and to breathe in toxins from those sites. And so they've been working to stop the fracking site. I mean, people come from different reasons. And this commission is over the next 3 days going to decide if this sunlight-long fracking pad with multiple sites will be set up near the Aurora Reservoir or not. Today is the public comment day, so we'll be watching as people give comment for both for and against the fracking site, and we're going to see what people say. Tomorrow is hearing from the oil and gas company and what their thoughts are on the issue and the risks. And then on Friday is going to hear from a local activist group, Save the Aurora Reservoir, or STAR, and And then at the end of that all, the commission's going to discuss and then present. And so the ECMC commission is a commission that is appointed by the governor of Colorado. So there are, I'm just double checking how many seats there are on the commission again. I think it's either 9 or 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's a 7-person commission. And they're appointed by the governor. So Governor Polis right now. And they get to decide where oil and gas gets to develop or not. And though Governor Polis is a Democratic governor, he actually likes to call himself libertarian. He just happens to, get the benefits of running in a Democratic primary, but then also do whatever he wants to do. And so even though our state thinks we should, our clean energy plan thinks we need to drill less, a number of people in the party platform, in the party, think we should drill less. He's actually quite friends with oil and gas and Excel and some of these companies who sponsor some of his events and give him talking spots, and they're at events together. And so we're going to find out today a little bit more about what the public says. My guess is that there's going to be a good amount of speakers on both sides. I think they said earlier that there's 180 people on the call. So theoretically, 150 to 180 comments today. Mix of for and against. We're going to see if what people say is genuine. We're going to see if it's backed by science, facts, and how many diverse talking points we see from the different sides. And so I wanted to stream this to have it on records, some of the different public comments, but additionally just to help tune in. I know a number of people who live near the Aurora Reservoir. I know Denver gets some of its drinking water from the Aurora Reservoir, and though I live closer to a different one, it's still interesting to see some of these cases and why they want to frack here and the risks associated. So that's where we're at. I think I need to... they're set to start again here in 2 minutes. I'm going to make sure that I'm ready. So we're no longer in an election stream. So I can take that off maybe? We'll make a new one. I'll be right. Let me make one really quick. A thumbnail. But yeah, besides that, we're going to chill. I'm going to tag some people I know to see if they want to tune in. Honestly, I'm going to do some work while listening to some of this comment. This will probably go on for 2-3 hours, maybe with some breaks, but it could go on longer, depending on how many public comments are set up. So, what's a good... I think I was using this one. And we're just going to switch this to Colorado News. Colorado News. And we're going to download it. And I'm cool with leaving I think the live chat up there unless it gets that in the way. This page, current page, transparent background, current page, and actually, so download, transparent background, current page, done, download. I'll go here, and new overlay, who this, okay, and then I can figure out live chat, I think. It's been a while. So let's see. do I engage with your audience? Thanks. Reactions. That's fine. How do I get chat to show? Displaying YouTube live chats. That's a widget. I don't want to. I think I've done it. It's pretty easy. I just gotta. Add.
Bear with folks. Commissioner Cross got kicked off of the Zoom meeting and he's trying to make his way back in.
Okay. Chat? Question mark? Okay. So not that.
Hearings Manager Thomas, Commissioner Cross is going to try to phone in. His computer's acting up. So be on the lookout.
Okay, thank you.
It looks like we've got him. Commissioner Cross, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Just trying to figure out why Zoom's not working on my computer. But I'll keep working on the computer, but listen on this.
Yeah, audio is fine. And for the record, Commissioner Messner, can you indicate your presence?
Let's check their audio too.
Yes, Chair Robbins, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, great. And you're going to appear via audio only for this next period of time, which is perfectly fine. All right, with that, we're going to take up the Energy and Carbon Management Commission docket 2412-00313, an oil and gas development plan proposed by Crestone Peak Resources Operating LLC. We do have two petitioners, Maverick Mineral Partners 2 and Save the Aurora Reservoir. For purposes of today, we are doing public comment. We start with any commissioner needing to provide any general comment ahead of getting into public comment. Commissioner Oath?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity. I did want to just make a disclosure before we begin hearing public comment and then testimony on this matter. In light of Crestone's inclusion in its responsive pre-hearing statement alleging STAR's violation of Rule 530, out of an abundance of caution and full transparency, I just want to provide this disclosure. The nature of the concern as expressed by Crestone was that an oral public comment was provided by Ms. Ann Hussein during the October 22nd ECMC meeting. During that meeting, Ms. Hussein provided a public comment that included questions regarding the status of the process that I am leading to convene a panel of experts to review several public health studies. Following that comment on October 22nd, I provided a brief response to Ms. Hussein during the meeting and noted that I would be happy to provide additional information offline. Ms. Hussein did follow up with an email to me with her questions about this process. I provided a response to her. That response included the information that I shared earlier today during commission comments about the status of the panel's work. I would want to be very clear that neither Ms. Hussein nor myself made any comments regarding the Sunlight Long OGDP. The exchange was related to this OGDP only in the sense that it is related in the same manner to all OGDPs that this commission reviews. This email communication in no way impacts my ability to be impartial in the Sunlight Long matter. I will make a decision on the matter based upon the information presented through the parties' pre-hearing submittals and the information submitted during this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Oath. Anything else from commissioners before we move into the docket? All right. Public comment. We received in the written filing, I think yesterday or the day before, a letter from the State Land Board. This docket involves State Land Board surface and mineral estate, and it is appropriate for us to understand State Land Board's perspective with regard to this docket. And with that, I would like the letter to be read into the record so that all stakeholders, all parties, etc., are aware of the positions taken by State Land Board with regard to this proposed OGDP. And with that, Hearings Manager Thomas, I would recognize you to read the letter into the record.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay?
And I have to figure out live chat. So
Dear
I'm gonna...
Commissioners, the Colorado State Land Board, referred to in this letter as State Land Board or Board, appreciates the opportunity to provide comments regarding the Sunlight Long Oil and Gas Development Plan. The State Land Board is a landowner subject to state and local laws and regulations and defers all OGDP approval authority to the ECMC. The purpose of this letter is to provide general information about the State Land Board oil and gas lease with Crestone Peak Resources Watkins Holding, LLC, its history, and information regarding affected mineral surface estate that is held in trust by our agency. Please note that much of the information provided in this letter reflects a summary of the attached exhibits, including the oil and gas lease. That summary might not reflect all of the particularized language or all provisions of interest to ECMC, and staff for the State Land Board encourage ECMC to review the specific provisions of the lease and other documents referenced and attached to this letter. The State Land Board is a constitutionally created agency with a fiduciary responsibility to steward 3 million acres of surface estate and 4 million acres of mineral estate for the financial benefit of Colorado public schools. The fiduciary responsibility of the State Land Board is a legal and ethical obligation to act solely in the best interest of beneficiaries. The agency operates to produce reasonable and consistent income over time and to provide sound stewardship of the state trust assets. Since the trust is intergenerational, the stewardship concept adopted by our agency is, quote, an ethic that embodies the responsible planning and management of resources, unquote, which supports the notion of stewarding land so future generations can continue to generate revenue from trust lands. The agency typically generates more than $200 million annually by leasing trust assets for assorted uses. Some uses include grazing, recreation, real estate, renewable energy, and oil and gas. Approximately 80% of the agency's annual revenue is generated from oil and gas royalties. The State Land Board owns the 26,000-acre Lowry Ranch, the majority of which falls inside of the approved Lowry Comprehensive Area Plan. Oil and gas drilling and development have occurred on parts of the Lowry Ranch since the 1920s. The State Land Board acquired the Lowry Ranch from the Department of Defense in the 1960s. Prior to State Land Board ownership, the Lowry Ranch was used as a bombing and gunnery range by the military. Currently, more than a dozen different entities hold State Land Board leases at the Lowry Ranch for uses including agriculture, renewable energy, recreation, and mineral extraction. Lowry Oil and Gas Lease History. Multiple operators have oil and gas leases inside the boundary of the Lowry Ranch, with the issuing dates ranging from 1970 to 2020. Crestone holds the largest oil and gas lease on the property, covering approximately 21,000 acres, originally issued to ConocoPhillips Company in 2012 and later assigned to Crestone in 2020, referred to herein as the Lowry Lease. The process to create and lease 21,000 acres as a single oil and gas lease was extensive and is described in detail below. In December 2010, the State Land Board hired a Lowry Ranch strategist project manager, City Venture, to lead the process of identifying a broad-based vision and development strategy for Lowry Ranch. City Venture's study concluded that oil and gas exploration and production activity associated with the Niobrara Shale Oil Formation underneath the Lowry Ranch represented a significant opportunity for the State Land Board. As a result, the board hired an oil and gas advisor, Meager Energy Advisors, to lead the preparation of an oil and gas development strategy that would allow the State Land Board to generate significant long-term revenue by issuing additional oil and gas leases on the Lowry Ranch. Simultaneously, the board established a requirement that any proposed oil and gas development plan be accompanied by a stewardship strategy that would recognize, protect, and enhance the most important environmental assets existing on the site at that time. As a result, staff, together with Meager Energy Advisors, ERO Environmental Consultants, HG2D Project Management, the Nature Conservancy, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, Colorado Natural Heritage Program, Arapahoe County, and the City of Aurora worked to develop a strategy that created a balance between generating reasonable and consistent revenue for K-12 education and long-term stewardship of the asset. Staff and the associated parties worked on the Lowry Ranch Stewardship Plan and the accompanying oil and gas lease over the next year and a half. The board discussed the stewardship plan and oil and gas lease during 15 public workshop/agenda items. During that time, the board received significant public testimony on the subject, which was considered when developing the plan. The oil and gas lease and Lowry Ranch Stewardship Plan were created and based on the development of the Lowry Ranch and the surrounding area at the time. The final oil and gas lease recommended by staff was designed to incorporate key recommendations of the stewardship plan. Recommendations from the 2012 board meeting included in the following. Number one, establishment of a no surface occupancy area surrounding important environmental and riparian assets such as Box Elder Creek and Coal Creek, totaling approximately 22% of the overall property. Number two, identification and protection of important wildlife habitats such as pocket gophers, burrowing owls, raptor nests, and prairie dogs. Three, identification of previously disturbed areas of the Lowry Ranch where placement of oil and gas facilities would be encouraged to minimize disturbance of new areas. Four, cap surface disturbance over the life of the Lowry lease at 650 acres, approximately 3.14% of the total surface area of the Lowry lease. Five, require the incorporation of best management practices to ensure that oil and gas development is conducted in an environmentally responsible manner. Six, other requirements and conditions that exceeded the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission rules and regulations applicable at the time, particularly around wildlife protections and requiring annual wildlife and vegetation surveys. Number seven, creation of the Lowry Ranch Management and Enhancement Fund using cash from the Lowry lease bonus payment. This is an interest-bearing fund, the proceeds of which are used to support restoration, enhancement, and research related to the natural values of the property. In October 2011, staff issued a request for qualifications to identify oil and gas operators with the interest, experience, and capability necessary to effectively and responsibly develop the minerals under the Lowry Ranch. Multiple responses were received and reviewed by staff, and qualified bidders who could meet all of the board's requirements were sent a request for proposal. Staff developed specific criteria to evaluate the proposals received, and staff unanimously determined that a bid received by ConocoPhillips Company was superior to other applications and exceeded the standards established by the State Land Board for all relevant qualifications identified in the request for qualifications and request for proposal. At the March 2012 public board meeting, the board approved issuing the Lowry lease to Conoco, along with proposed Lowry lease stipulations, Lowry surface use agreement, and Lowry rights of way and damage agreement. The cover sheet provided to the board by staff at that time is provided as Exhibit 1. As part of the stewardship plan at Lowry Ranch, the board also approved the use of $3.5 million of the Lowry lease bonus revenue to create an enhancement fund to maintain and enhance the natural values of the property. This fund directly ties the oil and gas development of the Lowry Ranch to the maintenance and enhancement of the natural value of the property. In April 2012, Conoco signed the Lowry lease and paid the largest bonus to date of $137 million, of which 3.5 million was placed in the Lowry Ranch Enhancement and Management Fund. Stewardship efforts the fund has supported to date include holistic grazing consulting and research, grassland bird studies, native grassland studies, shallow groundwater evaluations, and other ecological studies. The Lowry lease is the largest state land board royalty generator. The Lowry lease covers only school trust minerals, and to date, the Lowry lease has paid $92.99 million in royalties for the school trust. While the oil and gas royalty payments are difficult to forecast, the State Land Board anticipates future revenue generation of $300 million or more if oil and gas development continues, more than 95% of which directly supports K-12 education in Colorado. The State Land Board leasing process flowchart provides an overview of the typical review and leasing process of state trust lands. That is Exhibit 2. While the Lowry lease was developed by a particularly robust and in-depth RFP process, staff's ordinary leasing protocol notifies the contacts registered with ECMC's local government designee program to inform impacted and neighboring jurisdictions of contemplated oil and gas leasing in their respective counties and municipalities. Staff has identified the majority of the registered local government designees' work in the county planning departments and provide valuable insight to community development plans. Staff's process is to contact local government designees regarding potential leasing for oil and gas prior to the State Land Board's public board meetings and lease auction, and their comments are incorporated or considered by staff when determining whether to move forward with leasing on attractive land. With respect to the Lowry lease specifically, Arapahoe County and the city of Aurora were involved in the development process of the lease itself and were able to provide feedback on provisions. Stewardship stipulations. When creating the Lowry lease, the State Land Board worked with TNC to create and implement site-specific stewardship stipulations at the Lowry Ranch that are intended to protect natural values, limit surface disturbance, and minimize adverse impacts to public health, safety, and welfare. The Lowry lease has been attached as Exhibit 3, and the stipulations can be found starting on page 20. Stewardship stipulations include developing and implementing an integrated weed management plan, cleaning vehicles and equipment to prevent the spread of noxious weeds, restricting equipment access during muddy conditions, consulting with staff and CPW for pad siting, conducting annual wildlife monitoring, completing site-specific baseline studies for each pad and linear infrastructure, and submitting pre-disturbance site photos for all facilities. The Lowry lease includes requirements to complete extensive annual wildlife surveys and includes criteria requiring large setbacks between any proposed oil and gas development and the important natural ecosystems on the ranch. The Lowry lease also includes a tier map, which ranks the land at the Lowry Ranch into 4 tiers, with Tier 1 being the most restrictive with no surface occupancy, and Tier 4 being the least restrictive with preferred surface occupancy. The purpose of this system is to push development onto the previously disturbed lands and prohibit disturbance on sensitive areas of the Lowry Ranch. The portion of the Lowry lease outlining each tier definition has been provided in Exhibit 3 starting on page 22. The lease, particularly the stewardship stipulations and tier map, creates the framework for determining an acceptable surface location at the Lowry Ranch. The lease does not create a basis for determining whether one location that meets the Lowry lease criteria is preferred over another. Selection of a surface location within the Lowry lease parameters is driven by Crestone in light of the oil and gas and surface rights it obtained under the Lowry lease and its operational expertise. Below represents a limited summary of the tiers and occupancy provisions, though staff encourages review of the relevant Lowry lease provisions for a complete understanding of the tier system. Tier 1 lands, no surface occupancy. There are many factors that went into which tier the land was designated. The Lowry Ranch's former use as a military bombing and gunnery range rendered some lands unavailable, and staff identified sites committed to certain water leases and the most ecologically sensitive areas of the ranch as Tier 1, no surface occupancy lands, specifically Number 1, lands within 3/10 of a mile on either side of the center line of Box Elder Creek and Coal Creek. Number 2, the surface footprint of the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs lease being used for helicopter training operations. 3, the surface footprint of the Titan Missile Complex. 4, adjudicated Rangeview Reservoir sites subject to surface occupancy and the conduct of oil and gas operations if agreed on by Rangeview and the lease operator. And 5, 2 proposed reservoir sites, one proposed by Rangeview, which is expanded Reservoir C, and one proposed by the City of Aurora, the East Aurora Reservoir site, subject to surface occupancy if agreed on by the board and the lease operator. Tier 2 lands, controlled surface occupancy. Tier 2 lands require the maximum restrictions on surface occupancy consistent with conservation and stewardship principle. Tier 2 lands include the area located 0.3 to 0.5 miles, 1,056 additional feet, from the center line of Box Elder Creek. They also include 200 feet on either side of the center line of the major tributaries to Box Elder Creek and Coal Creek, identified black-tailed prairie dog colonies, portions of the Piedmont grasslands, and all land located within a 300-foot radius of the subsurface water monitoring drill wells drilled within and adjacent to the Titan Missile Complex. Tier 3 lands, managed surface occupancy. Tier 3 lands are considered suitable for oil and gas operations subject to all Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission rules, specific lease terms, lease stipulations, and surface use agreements. Tier 4 lands, preferred surface occupancy. Tier 4 lands include parts of Lowry Ranch where previous and/or existing activities such as sand and gravel mining resulted in a significant level of site disturbance. To the extent practical, the lessee is encouraged to locate facilities on these previously disturbed areas of the property. Since Lowry is a former military bombing and gunnery range, the Lowry lease also has an unexploded ordnance requirement prior to any oil and gas development on the Lowry Ranch. Crestone is required to work with the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment and the Army Corps of Engineers to ensure unexploded ordnance, site remediation, and develop an operational safety plan and safety protocols, and to educate and inform contractors of any concerns on the land. The Lowry lease also includes a disturbance cap where only 3.14% of the 21,000-acre lease, 650 acres, can be disturbed for oil and gas development. To incentivize development on Tier 4 lands, disturbance on Tier 4 does not count toward the disturbance cap. However, disturbance on Tier 2 lands counts double toward the cap, and disturbance on Tier 3 counts 1-to-1 against the cap. Crestone's current and planned disturbance footprint is well below the disturbance cap requirement, and they have advised that they may only impact half of the allowable acreage. Crestone and previously Conoco have completed a considerable number of wildlife surveys on the property to support the board's long-term stewardship goals. Many of the studies were performed at Crestone's discretion and were not required under the Lowry lease. Staff estimates that over 120 surveys regarding a large variety of plant and animal species have been conducted on the Lowry Ranch. The most extensive studies have been completed on nesting raptors and swift fox activity, which was used in conjunction with CPW's high priority habitat data to inform the siting of oil and gas facilities on the Lowry Ranch. Staff determined that the proposed location for the state sunlight long pad is consistent with the terms of the Lowry lease stewardship stipulations and tier structure. To ensure compliance of all provisions on the Lowry lease, Crestone is required and has met with staff annually to discuss stewardship obligations and development plans. The State Land Board defers to ECMC's regulatory authority over siting oil and gas locations, and Crestone's compliance with applicable law is required by the Lowry lease. Thus, to the extent the ECMC determines that a proposed location is consistent with ECMC's regulations, Crestone would be required to rectify any regulatory shortcomings with the OGDP if it wished to develop oil and gas from that location. While Crestone is responsible for oil and gas development under the Lowry lease, the state land board would cooperate with Crestone in ensuring that development is consistent with applicable law, including if ECMC determines that an alternative location analysis is required by its regulations. Again, the state land board defers to ECMC as to whether oil and gas development meets ECMC's regulation. The state land board and the school trust stands to receive significant revenue from production of this location. The facilitation of development compliant with law is therefore in the interest of the state land board's beneficiaries. Efforts to recite the proposed pad, if required by ECMC and pursued by Crestone, would require significant additional time from the state land board to ensure compliance with the Lowry lease terms. Approved surface use agreement. Staff gave preliminary approval to the Sunlight Long Pad location in May 2024 and finalized a surface use agreement with Crestone in October of 2025, Exhibit 4. Along with other documentation requirements to obtain staff SUA approval, Crestone has been required to take the following actions. 1. Demonstrate that Sunlight Long Pad location was compatible with the State Land Board tier map. 2. Demonstrate no objection from Rangeview regarding acreage that overlaps a Rangeview adjudicated reservoir site. Exhibit 5. Number 3. Conduct initial site visits to the proposed pad location starting in August 2022 with staff, including mineral field specialist, district manager, and stewardship trust manager, to approve an appropriate surface location to minimize disturbance on the Lowry Ranch. Number 4, conduct secondary site visit with staff and CPW in September 2022 to consult with CPW and obtain feedback on biological impact of proposed site location. Number 5, repeat site visits with staff at the Lowry Ranch during 2023 to 2024 to restake and look at 6 different versions of Sunlight Long locations that evolved in response to stakeholder feedback from the public, Arapahoe County, Aurora, CPW, and CDPHE. Number 6, adhere to CPW biologist recommendations to ensure drilling plans and pad location minimize impacts to wildlife. Crestone met with CPW on multiple occasions and staff received sign-off from CPW prior to approving the surface use agreement. Number 7, in response to feedback from Aurora and CDPHE, relocate an access road and accompanying pipelines away from the Aurora Reservoir. Staff obtained board approval at the June 2025 public board meeting to move the access road and pipeline servicing the Sunlight Long Pad onto Tier 1 lands. The board approved the request based on current information, which staff believed removed the necessity of the original Tier 1 designation. Number 8, comply with UXO requirements managed by CDPHE and the Army Corps of Engineers, including initial meetings in 2022 and creation of an operational plan in 2025. Number 9, comply with ECMC, Arapahoe County, and Aurora water regulations regarding setbacks to reservoirs and communities. As noted above, staff reviewed multiple pad locations with Crestone before approving the current location. Original pad locations were moved due to concerns from Aurora Water, the community, and CPW. Staff determined that the current location met the State Land Board Lowry lease requirements. Again, the State Land Board defers to the ECMC's regulatory authority over siting oil and gas locations. State Land Board management of the Lowry lease. The relevant public process concerning the State Land Board's development and entry into the Lowry lease occurred at or prior to execution in 2012. The State Land Board is, and has been since 2012, subject to the terms of the Lowry lease and the grant of oil and gas and surface rights contemplated thereby. Much of the State Land Board's management of the oil and gas resources and attendant surface rights is limited to enforcement of the terms of the Lowry lease. The Lowry lease provides the process and procedure for determining individual surface locations on the surface of the land. The State Land Board considered and implemented feedback on that process prior to execution of the Lowry lease. That Lowry lease process now governs Crestone's development and the State Land Board's rights on the Lowry Ranch. The State Land Board followed the surface use procedure in this case, resulting in the execution of the surface use agreement attached to this letter as Exhibit 4. The State Lands Board's position in this matter is primarily that of an oil and gas lessor landowner. As noted above, the Lowry lease and accompanying SUA require the lessee to be in strict compliance with all governmental requirements, including all federal, state, or local statutes, laws, ordinances, codes, rules, regulations, and decrees. The Lowry lease and SUA process therefore incorporates the rules and regulations of the ECMC and other relevant authorities. Whereas the Lowry lease represents the state land boards and Crestone's allocation of rights and responsibilities with respect to the Lowry Ranch property, the state land board relies on ECMC and other governmental authorities for a determination of whether Lowry lease operations comply with applicable law. To the extent operations or proposed operations violate or do not adhere to applicable law, the state land board would enforce the Lowry lease requirements accordingly. Compliance with applicable law is a requirement of all state land board leases. Leases remain subject to the relevant authorities by their express terms, and leases do not purport to grant a party license to develop free of restriction. Current state of Lowry lease and historical oil and gas operations. Today, there are active oil and gas operations on the Lowry Ranch by 4 different operators, along with wells previously drilled and plugged by former operators on the ranch. Records of oil and gas development on the ranch go back as far as the 1920s, prior to the State Land Board's ownership. The oldest leases issued by State Land Board that are still producing on Lowry Ranch were issued in the 1970s, and the most recent lease was issued in 2019. The 2019 lease covered 160.5 acres underlying the former Eureka USA facility north of Quincy Avenue along the western portion of the Lowry Ranch. This lease was brought to the board at the April 2019 public board meeting, received no objections, and was approved by the board for leasing. This acreage is included in the Lowry cap. In terms of mineral development, Lowry Ranch currently has 36 producing horizontal wells, 28 of which are included within the Lowry cap, 12 drilled but currently uncompleted horizontal wells, and 14 producing or shut-in vertical wells, 8 of which are included within the Lowry cap. The oldest still producing vertical well on the Lowry Ranch was spud in 1972. The oldest producing horizontal well was spud in 2011. The oldest Crestone operated well on the ranch is a horizontal well spud in 2014, which is still producing. The Lowry Ranch was also the site of other mineral development, including 2 sand and gravel mining leases. Starting in 1988, the board leased a portion of the Lowry Ranch to Schmidt Construction for a large-scale sand and gravel mine. The company mined over 200 acres of property, and this mine is now almost fully reclaimed. Oil and gas has, however, been the main revenue driver since the State Land Board has taken ownership. Conclusion. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the proposed Sunlight Long OGDP. The letter above represents State Land Board staff's understanding of the relevant history of the property and oil and gas leases based on a reasonable review of its files. In closing, the State Land Board is not opining as to whether the OGDP application satisfies applicable laws and regulations enforced by ECMC, and the State Land Board relies on ECMC for such matters within ECMC's jurisdiction. The State Land Board is providing this letter to commissioners of the ECMC in order to 1. Provide an overview of the history of this lease, 2. Describe some of the natural values being monitored and preserved through State Land Board lease stipulations, 3. Describe the potential revenues future production could bring to the school children in Colorado, and 4. Inform ECMC that staff has granted a surface use agreement and determined that the location is consistent with the Lowry lease terms and stipulations. Please feel free to contact me with any questions you may have about the State Land Board or our oil and gas leasing operations on Lowry Ranch. Sincerely, Crystal Caranda, Mineral Director of the State Land Board.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thomas. Good reading there, and we appreciate getting that into the record. Next, I'm going to summarize some points made by the City of Aurora in a November 17th, 2025 letter directed to me as chair of the commission. This, and I'm going to quote just certain parts. I'm not going to read the whole thing. The city of Aurora, through its utility enterprise, Aurora Water, owns and operates the Aurora Reservoir, holds all water storage rights associated with the reservoir, and owns the water rights for water stored in the reservoir. They make 4 main points. 1, protection of the Aurora Reservoir. First, they indicate, as currently proposed, there is a clear topographic separation between the state Sunlight Long well site and the Aurora Reservoir. This means that any surface spill on the well site would flow away from the Aurora Reservoir rather than to it. This greatly minimizes the risk of contamination of the reservoir from a surface spill occurring at the well site. If oil or produced water were to be transported by truck from the well site, there is the possibility that a surface spill from a truck could flow into the Aurora Reservoir. As a result, we worked with Civitas Resources and the State Land Board to shift the access road from the state Sunlight Long well site further east, away from the reservoir, and to help maintain the topographic separation between the access road and the reservoir. Further, we supported Civitas's plan to transport both oil and produced water via a pipeline to a tank battery near Quincy Avenue. The pipeline route is along the access road, which is also topographically separated from the reservoir. With all products planned to be transported via pipeline from the well site, there is a minimized risk from a surface spill. The use of pipelines to transport oil, natural gas, and produce water from the well site also vastly reduces the number of trucks needed for the production phase, and thus significantly reduces dust which could be blown into the reservoir. The shifting of the access road further east provides a greater barrier for dust generated by small pickups that will service the well site. Next, they speak to protection of groundwater aquifers. Contaminant pathways into the aquifers could be either via surface spills or through the hydraulic fracturing process. As discussed in the previous section, the Aurora Reservoir and likewise the aquifers under the reservoir and under Aurora are topographically separated from the proposed well site. The second potential path of contamination would be from hydraulic fracturing. We have engaged in multiple reviews of geologic data around the reservoir. Geologic cross-sections prepared in 2011 by Peter Barkman through the Colorado Geologic Survey demonstrate the consistency of lithology from well to well in the shallow section under the reservoir. There is no evidence of any tectonic faulting that could be activated by hydraulic fracturing, nor any faulting that connects the surface or shallow formations to the deeper Niobrara Shale production zone. In between the shallow aquifers and the deeper Niobrara Shale is almost 6,000 feet of the Pierre Shale. The Pierre Shale is a competent sealing layer that prevents migration of hydrocarbons to the shallow aquifers. We have found no evidence that the Pierre Shale is faulted or otherwise compromised. Multiple neighborhoods have been drilled under and hydraulically fractured with the same geologic conditions and without impact, including Murphy Creek, Waterstone, Cross Creek, Traditions, Adonia, Harmony, and the Aurora Highlands. Based on these facts, there is no expectation of risk of contamination to our groundwater or aquifers. Next, they speak to protection of the Aurora Reservoir Dam. The risk to the reservoir dam could be from seismic activity, either directly from hydraulic fracturing or from activation of an existing fault under or nearby the reservoir. I'm skipping. Next, they say from these sources, and they cite a bunch of sources, we can find no recorded evidence of any faulting in the subsurface under or near the Aurora Reservoir, which could be activated by hydraulic fracturing to
What did he
connect the
skip?
Niobrara Formation
I'm
to the
skipping.
shallow
You
aquifers
can't
or
just
surface.
do that when reading a statement.
Again, that's a November 17th letter that is in our file. It's in the portfolio, and it's from Marshall Brown, the City of Aurora Water Department, and Jeffrey Moore, their oil and gas designee. I would inform commissioners that if you have further questions for either of these parties, we do have the ability to submit further questions in writing to either of the parties, and we would get that back into the record after we're done with that. All right. With that, it's 11:55. I would anticipate that maybe we start in on public comment. We've got 37 people that have signed up for public comment. Each person will receive 3 minutes for public comment. Representative Hamrick is a representative. We generally allow elected officials 5 minutes for public comment. So why don't we get into this and see how far we can go before we need to break for lunch? If we could bring Rep. Hamrick up, we will allow her 5 minutes.
Hi, good afternoon, Commissioners. Can you hear me?
I can. Good. It's still morning. It's 11:56. Good morning.
Yeah, I'm in New Orleans, so it's
Oh,
afternoon.
okay.
So
Good for
good
you.
afternoon. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Representative Eliza Hamrick, and I join the many community members calling on you to deny the proposed Sunlight Long Oil and Gas Development Plan. The state can and should deny this permit. Approval is not automatic. It must meet Colorado's health, safety, and environmental standards. This project does not. Water is one of Colorado's most precious and finite resources, and this site sits within a sensitive drinking water protection area that was explicitly designed to remain off limits to industrial oil and gas activity. The Aurora Reservoir, located just north of this proposed pad, is a major drinking water source for thousands of residents. Allowing drilling and fracking operations so close to that reservoir jeopardizes not only water quality, but also the public's trust in our state's commitment to safeguard essential resources. Beyond water, this project compounds the air quality crisis we already face. Aurora and the Denver metro area remain in federal ozone non-attainment, and residents are already struggling with respiratory health challenges and repeated ozone alert days. The addition of 32 wells, diesel truck fleets, and 24-hour operations will make our air worse, not better. This site would be placed near neighborhoods that already carry disproportionate health and pollution burdens. These are the families, children, and seniors most at risk from cumulative impacts. Yet they have had little voice in this process. Many only learned of this project recently, despite its enormous implications for their safety and quality of life. And while the operator will profit, the public will bear the cost. If our water is contaminated, our air further degraded, and our land scarred, that is not a fair or responsible trade-off for our communities. As a representative of this area, I'm deeply concerned that public engagement has come too late and that residents feel left out of the decisions that directly affect their health and future. This project does not align with Colorado's environmental justice, climate, or public health priorities. And recently, actually just today, the Denver Post posted an article entitled "Aurora Nudges Restaurants to Quit Automatically Serving Water as Part of the Effort to Count Every Single Drop." This was a bipartisan resolution from the City Council to save water. Now, Aurora is doing this, and why are we allowing this project to go forward? How many customer glasses of water is in 1 billion gallons? I urge this commission to deny the permit, not to delay the progress, but to protect the people you serve. Our communities deserve transparency, accountability, and a future where clean air and safe water are non-negotiable. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rep. Hamrick. We appreciate your being with us and taking time out of your day to present to us.
Thank
All
you.
right. Next, we have Jason Wu.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, so first, all of the stuff that the state land board said was fine and great, but we're talking about 2 out of 7 pads, roughly 30%. It's a fraction of the revenue, and it's not interest in the elementary schools that are within 2 miles. So we're just talking about a fraction. Let's do a quick refresher. How do these cancer studies work? You look at cancer rates for people living near fracking and living without, and you look at people to rule out other factors. And we see that living near fracking increases cancer in several studies from Colorado, Pennsylvania, and Texas. All of the emerging evidence is pointing in the same direction, but the county says not enough evidence. Well, what amount of evidence is necessary? Lives are at stake, and caution, like a county stay order and official review of the 3,000-foot setback, is appropriate. Otherwise, we're simply waiting for more people to get cancer to get sufficient evidence. Who's responsible? It's not the oil company, because they're just asking for approval. The county is responsible because they are supposed to regulate surface impacts, and they have been negligent in this regard. They've also seemed to have violated reasonable due process because of their opaque and expedited approval. The state, if they approve, is also responsible as a secondary check if approval is given knowing critical evidence on cancer health has not been considered. That's negligence. For these reasons, I think our only option is now to first sue the county and then the state. My family is making a modest commitment of $5,000 a year if and when litigation begins. If there are just 200 others willing to make the same commitment, that's a budget of at least $1 million a year. Why are we committing in this way? Well, folks, we believe this is truly good work. It's godly work. Why? Because the system is placing families at undue risk over what is a fraction of overall drilling, not just 30% of the Lowry, but think about all the pads that are out there in Weld County and on the Front Range. We're talking about a fraction, folks. Why do we need 2 more pads so close to homes? It is very likely several additional families per year will suffer from childhood cancer. But I tell you, even the prevention of one family going through that, that's worth it. Here's the suggested plan. A search for a firm. Could be a local firm, could be a nationwide search. Second, after you find the firm, you raise the funds. Who's going to do this? Save the Aurora Reservoir. After that, you contract the firm. I don't think there's any other options. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Wu. We now will hear from Bill Crosser. Crosser?
Yes, thank you. I have to start my video. Okay, can you see and hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Bill Cresser. I have a PhD in chemical engineering. I spent my career helping heavy industries find a way to carry out their operations without harming the public. When a disagreement occurred, I was sometimes on the side of industry, explaining to the public why a certain fear was unfounded or a certain operational change unnecessary. At other times, I was explaining to the business how they could reduce their harm to the public by building better prevention into the design instead of ignoring the complaints. And I was part of building those designs. We eventually got to the point where engineers and top corporate officials met with the public every month and were transparent about what they were doing. If we had that system here, I could go to a meeting. I could see exactly which wells had falsified data from the third-party vendor and exactly what they were going to do to make sure that data like that never got submitted again. But we don't. I've worked on the manufacturing side where company policy was to be certain that the outcome of every operation was what they wanted. And we put as much effort into quality control of the emissions as we did for our products. Safety was our highest priority and carried over to the safety and well-being of our neighbors. Now we have proposed operations which are inherently risky. Given that observation, it's essential to look at the past performance of the operator to assess the likelihood of a major accident or regular leaks. I haven't seen anything in the application that reports on the success or failure of the previous efforts of that operator to avoid accidents. I understand there have been enough problems in Colorado to attract the attention of television media. ECMC issued a notice of alleged violation to 7 operators, including Civitas. When CBS Colorado asked about the particulars, they received responses from several parties, but no response at all from Civitas or from their third-party contractor, Eagle Environmental Consulting. To assess the possibility of harm, I would certainly need such information. So it occurs to me, don't the nearby neighbors need that information also? How do they know whether to come here and lodge a complaint or trust that the company will do them right? They don't have the information they need. I add that I regularly taught the risk assessment course for master's degree students at my university's environmental program. And I explored these issues in depth, using scientific studies to put risk assessment on a firm foundation. I commend the ECMC for putting together scientific panels to provide information for a thorough risk assessment of fracking. Because we don't yet have results from those panels, I strongly advise the ECMC to halt issuing permits for the moment and instead continue collecting information from expert scientists who are not beholden to the company and can point out any inconsistencies or false statements that Civitas experts cited in their application. That way, we might all learn which steps are harmful and which are not, and issue permits that would result in safety in the long run for all Coloradans. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you very much, Mr. Crisser. Next on the list is Glenn Kitchell.
Mr. Chair, we've not been able to locate Glenn Kitchell in the attendee list. If Glenn is in there, please raise your hand. So we'll keep moving.
Okay. I will note that we are going to skip him for now. Marcia Goldsmith-Cammon.
My name is Marcia Goldsmith-Cammon, and I'm speaking as a private citizen who lives in Arapahoe County. At this juncture of providing the ECMC with our input, I find myself commenting from my personal angle as a grandmother. For almost 3 years now, I've been trying to provide my grandchildren with a safe place in which to live, sharing scientific-based approaches to assist you in fulfilling your mission of protecting the public health, welfare, and safety. I've done all that I can to encourage you to make evidence-based decision-making. Now is your opportunity to demonstrate to all of us that you have not only listened to our community's comments, but have actually verified, validated, and taken seriously what we've been telling you as well. When you look at our data and hear our concerns, you need to use an abundance of caution and your moral compass to make your final decision on State Sunlight Long. This is not State La Plata South, Wetterhorn Handies, Harvard, Yale, State Beardstat, State Massive, Tebow, Blanca, West, or Secret Stash, which are all on the Lowry Ranch. The cumulative health impacts of these multiple well pad emissions, piggybacking on each other, are already presenting our community with huge, life-changing risks. The future of our community is now in your hands. The damage to surrounding communities' health and well-being are at stake. Thousands of lives will be impacted by your decision because Sunlight Long's currently proposed location is unacceptable. It's perilously close to so many people, wildlife, our water source, schools, and the place that people from all over the state recreate. Creststone's own documents show pre-production lasting almost 2 years and drilling and completions running concurrently on the pad. I haven't ever seen pre-production lasting this long in other applications or concurrent phases in other OGDPs. This density of sources already identified by Creststone has the potential to cause undeniable fire risks, leaks, and accidents that put thousands of people at risk. The unusable forever ruined water that will be injected into wells in Weld County will not only put Arapahoe County at risk, it's going to put Weld County at risk too. Your responsibility is to protect all Colorado citizens. On behalf of all the children in these areas, please ensure the next generations will be able to enjoy their environment as we have done when growing up. I hope you will help me leave my grandchildren a safe environment in which to live. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
think it's
Next
her
up, we have
husband.
Mark Goldsmith-Cammon.
Yeah.
Thanks. I said that as well, but I was muted. I've got to stop. I got to figure out how to stop unmuting. Mr. Goldsmith-Cammon, you were recognized.
No problem. Good afternoon. I'm Mark Goldsmith-Cammon, speaking as a member of the community.
I'd like to take a slightly unconventional approach today. On Monday, I was listening to the latest episode of a highly respected podcast, Throughline. They were discussing the history of the concept of a nuclear winter, with which I assume you're all familiar. But about 45 minutes into the podcast, they moved on to discuss a group of scientists who started questioning the concept's validity. I'd like to play you about 90 seconds of that portion of the podcast.
By the mid-1980s, a few scientists had begun rebranding the theory.
Nuclear fall, a chill rather than the dramatic bitter cold hypothesized for a nuclear winter.
They argued it wouldn't lead to full extinction of the human race, but it would still be really bad.
Anybody who needs to know the weather report after a nuclear war in order to be deterred is already crazy.
But one scientist, Fred Singer, disagreed and said it could actually bring on a nuclear summer.
What they've forgotten is that the smoke cloud also keeps in the heat.
Singer was a prominent climate change skeptic, and it was later discovered that throughout his career, he had been paid by oil and tobacco companies who had hired a handful of scientists to quell concerns about the impact these companies were having on the environment. Some historians call them merchants of doubt.
Professional purveyors of uncertainty.
People who have set out deliberately to confuse the public about science.
Who would just frame the questions around overstatement and uncertainties being the real story on any issue.
And these voices got a lot of airtime.
We in the media were addicted to conflict and debate, and so it's easy to build stories that kind of mischaracterize the uncertainty by making it a us and them fight.
Okay. By this Friday afternoon, you will have heard a lot of concerns from the community, along with data, including from health professionals, wildlife professionals, engineers, scientists, and more. Plus, you have everything we've presented to you in previous hearings. The community has done its best to present true, accurate, relevant, and peer-reviewed scientific information. You will also hear directly from the oil and gas industry as well as their professional witnesses and attorneys. I'm asking you to carefully consider the sources of information you will have heard both in the past and at these hearings. Please keep in mind your responsibility to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of the environment and wildlife resources. The choices you'll make on Friday will have implications well beyond just the financial benefits of a single company. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cammon, for being with us. We now hear from Michael Rose. Mr. Rose, I see you're on the panel. It looks like you have audio.
Yes, that's correct. Let me get my visual video up there. Thank you. I'm Michael Rose. I live in Denver. I'm speaking today as a concerned citizen and as a member of Colorado Jewish Climate Action. Thank you again for letting me provide a comment. At our meeting on September 11th, you once again heard of the very real threats to public health and safety, the risk of childhood cancer, the risk of contamination of the Aurora Reservoir, though the state land board is telling us now that it's nothing to be worried about. Concerns about air pollution, the potential for rupture of the Lowry landfill Superfund site, methane emissions, the risk of drilling beneath the Aurora Reservoir, threats to wildlife and fire risk. You heard impassioned pleas from people near the reservoir who live near the reservoir, stating their fears about sunlight long. I have respiratory problems that are bad enough as it is. Look at me, I can't live near the site. There were concerns about children going outside, parents worried about their children being triggered by asthma being triggered by air pollution. Once again, members of the commission, you'll have to listen through these meetings, and you'll also have to listen to the corporate attorney for the oil companies, and company employees will explain how they checked all the boxes, addressed all the public health, wildlife, and safety concerns as required by law, and hoping to reassure that any risks or threats are non-existent or quite small. I live in the city and county of Denver, but this fracking site, along with other fracking sites proposed for the Lowry Ranch area, pose an extreme and totally unnecessary risk to the Denver aquifer and the air quality of the Metro Denver area. I'm also taking notice of the environmental justice report by the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, particularly pointing to the air toxic emission score, which measures the distance-weighted measure of estimated air toxics emissions. That ranked in the 95.22% range. That to me should be disqualifying right then and there. Then there was also the population under 5 years old measure, which was in the 84.63% range. As you know, there are schools and playgrounds and other child-centered facilities and family-centered facilities and housing in the area. These should be disqualifying. We've already heard from, in different hearings from the Bella Romero people who live next to a well pads in Weld County, and where the children at that school right near there have been suffering concerning health problems. Please reject this application. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. We now will hear from Brian Matisse.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Brian Matisse, speaking on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Arapahoe and Douglas counties. The League is a nonpartisan grassroots organization working to ensure that everyone is represented in our democracy. The League appreciates the opportunity to comment on the Sunlight Long Oil and Gas Development Plan. SB 181 charges this commission with ensuring the health, safety, and well-being of Coloradans in oil and gas permitting decisions. And ECMC Rule 301A requires that the commission will approve operations only if they protect and minimize adverse impacts to public health, safety, welfare, the environment, and wildlife resources, and may require conditions of approval that are determined to be necessary and reasonable to protect and minimize adverse impacts. We are concerned that administrators and staff take these responsibilities seriously and must not recommend approval of applications without adequate protections. In particular, 1, risks to the public health of benzene and other carcinogens that are known to cause leukemia in children. The well site is within 1 mile of sensitive populations of children, including schools and daycare. The ECMC should require that the applicant ensure that there will be no detectable benzene in residential areas, that continuous monitoring of benzene and other hydrocarbons be implemented, that operations be halted if benzene emissions are detected, and that the applicant provide personal injury mass tort insurance sufficient to cover damages from new leukemia cases. 2, risks to the Aurora Reservoir and surrounding riparian and recreational areas. The proposed pad is located only 911 feet from an intermittent stream and within half a mile from the recreational and riparian areas that flow to the Aurora Reservoir. The access road that will haul tens of thousands of tanker trucks of contaminated, toxic wastewater will be immediately adjacent to the reservoir, a disaster waiting to happen. 3, proximity to high priority wildlife habitat and sensitive wildlife. The applicant acknowledges there will be significant loss of high priority winter habitat, but instead of prohibiting winter operations, will pay CPW compensatory amount of $23,894. The League does not believe that money can compensate for this habitat loss. Just because CPW agrees to accept money to allow this habitat loss does not absolve the Commission of its duty to protect wildlife. And 4, the League is concerned that alternate locations 2 miles further east were not considered, given that horizontal wellbores can be drilled about 5 miles. Higher costs of drilling does not justify the significant risks. For these reasons, the League recommends the Commission not approve the OGDP as presented. Thank you for considering these comments.
Thank you very much for presenting to us. Megan Siffring?
Hi, good morning or afternoon now, everyone. My name is Megan Siffring. I am an Aurora resident for 10 years, a mom of 2 young children in the Aurora public school system, and also a candidate for House District 42 representing Northwest Aurora. I am here to voice some environmental concerns as well as that of the supply to the citizens of Aurora. I understand that additional provisions have been made to the original agreement mandating auxiliary water and air pollution testing. I also appreciate the evidence of your collaboration with community-based and local environmental organizations. However, what I did not find is any clause which states that operations should immediately cease should any of those levels approach becoming hazardous, nor any remediation measures to execute after such an incident. I'm hoping that these do exist, and I just did not come across them in my research, but obviously those would be paramount for this project to move forward. As you may know, at 95%, the vast majority of Aurora's potable water comes from surface sources, such as the Aurora Reservoir. Dependent on snowmelt, as is especially evident this year, the source is already unpredictable as is. A single fracking well can use up to 16 million gallons of water, with as low as 10% of that being reused, meaning we'll be mostly dependent on precipitation alone to replenish that supply. The EPA does cite that in Colorado alone, the amount of water used for fracking could an 8 for an entire year. And this is a 20-year proposed production timeline, so that makes a big impact. We already live in a drought-prone state. We should not be messing with our already conservative water supply. With climate change accelerating the need for alternative means for our precious resources, fracking is a band-aid at best to address our increasing energy consumption. The seismic damage fracking causes is well documented, as are the negative consequences to our air and water. Notable is the difference between tectonic, the presence of which has just been ruled out and refers to the movement of our lithospheric plates, but seismic is different. That refers instead to the disturbance of the ground itself, which obviously fracking can impact. While the board vows to mitigate pollution with a vapor recovery tower, it is important to note also that that does not negate the instance of pollutants escaping, it only lowers it. We as a community should be finding ways to regenerate energy rather than to simply deplete it in new areas. Thank you for listening to the people who live here. Now it's time to put your money where your mouth is and take care of us too. Thank you so much.
Thank you for presenting to us this afternoon. Next on my list is Rachel Markowitz, but I also see Rachel Braver is in the room. Are you one and the same?
I'm the same. Yes, thank you.
Okay, go for it.
Hi, I'm Rachel, and I'm speaking to you as a terrified mother, asking you to deny the Sunlight Long application. This project threatens the safety, health, and future of our entire community. It is dangerous, it is irresponsible, and it has no place near our homes, our children's schools, and our drinking water. As you have heard, our water supply is already limited and vulnerable. This project brings unacceptable risks of contaminations, spills, and long-term aquifer damage. This would push more pollutants and more emissions, more toxic, undisclosed compounds into the air that my children and your children will breathe. We do not consent to exposing our lungs to industrial, undisclosed contaminants, especially without complete and independent health studies. Deny. Our neighborhoods were never designed for industrial truck traffic, 24/7 operations, and heavy equipment noise. Our lives will be disrupted, safety will be compromised, and this is not compatible with residential life. Deny. We already live with constant wildfire risk, and relying on a rural fire department with limited industrial risk experience that's already stretched across hundreds of paths is not a realistic emergency plan. Deny. The region is seismically unstable, being so close to the Lowry Fund Superfund site. The applicant is asking us to trust limited, unvetted assessments, and it's unacceptable when people's homes and lives are on the line. Deny. Our homes are our life savings. This project will depress property values across the area so the operator can profit. That is not a fair trade. Deny. Our wildlife corridors are destroyed and they do not return. This project would cause permanent harm to natural systems. Deny. Nothing should move forward until the comprehensive health reviews are posted, which I believe I heard was Q2 of 2026. That alone should halt this project immediately. The mental health toll has been real. For 3 years, I have lost sleep, I have fear, I have anxiety over what's to happen, and constant uncertainty. No one should have to endure this for any industrial proposal that should never have advanced this far. Deny. My why is personal. I have young immunocompromised children who already are struggling with their severe asthma, living in this non-attainment area. They deserve clean air, safe water, and a chance to grow, not to breathe industrial emissions during recess. Deny. The recent Colorado study showed that children living 3 to 8 miles face significantly higher risks of leukemia. Our community has those children within that radius. No project is worth even the possibility of increasing cancer in anyone. That should be enough for you to deny. The recent spills in Gailton are a flashing red warning. If spills happen there, they can happen here. Containment fails, the data gets falsified, as we have seen. Communities are paying the price, and we cannot ignore these warnings. Deny. Listen to the community feedback. Hundreds and thousands of people have complained about this. We deserve better, our families deserve better, and our children deserve better. Commissioners, this is your moment to show courage, leadership, and protection for the community that you serve. Our health, our safety, and our future depend on it. Deny the Sunlight Long application. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Now we'll hear from Christine Dayton.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Ms. Dayton.
Okay, I'm not sure what's going on with my video, but I'll just continue so I don't waste time. I'm Christine Dayton, and I'm an Aurora resident, homeowner, and mom. I'm here to urge you to vote no on the Sunlight Long permit. I'll start with a positive here. Millions of dollars for our schools is without question a wonderful thing. We can all agree on that. We want stronger schools, better teachers, and more opportunities for our children. But we have to ask a very simple question. At what risk? We've seen all the health studies, especially those focused on children and adolescents. They don't offer vague suggestions. They point to real, measurable concerns about air quality, respiratory health, cancer, and long-term exposure to industrial operations. When it comes to health of the students, even the possibility of harm should make us pause. We've discussed and addressed things like no surface occupancy areas, as if the absence of machinery on the surface means the impacts disappear. But very little attention has been given to what it means to drill beneath our schools and our reservoir. A well pad moved a few thousand feet away does not erase the fact that the drilling, the vibrations, the risk of leaks, et cetera, under two crucial community assets, places our children and our community at risk. We've been shown wildlife surveys and environmental impact assessments. We're told these concerns can be mitigated, but isn't the need for mitigation itself an admission that the risks are real? You don't mitigate what's harmless. You mitigate what could cause damage to ecosystems, the air, the water, and the long-term health of our community. And perhaps most importantly, you've heard from the people who actually live here. Your responsibility is not only to geological formations, not only to regulatory frameworks, not only to corporate assurances, it's to this community and the people who live here and have built our lives here. We don't want these wells in our backyards, not above us and not below us. It's our home, our children breathe this air, our water flows from that reservoir, and our community bears the consequences long after the drilling rigs and trucks are gone. So today I'm asking you to listen to the evidence, to the uncertainty, and most of all to the people who live here, and please vote no on Sunlight Long. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We now will hear from James Wooldridge.
Yes, thank you. My name is James Oldridge. I'm a concerned citizen. I'm here to call on the ECMC to deny the permit for Sunlight Long. There's a lot of reasons. It's a grave threat to Aurora's biggest water source. Fracking wells use an absurd amount of water that Colorado doesn't have to spare. Blood cancer risk will be doubled for thousands of children in a 3-mile radius of Sunlight Long. Not to mention that the extraction of fossil fuels contributes to catastrophic global warming. We're talking wildfires, landslides, drought, just here in Colorado. And my generation and people younger than me deserve to have a livable future. And fracking sites like Sunlight Long are stealing from my future. So we, the community, are here watching to see which side of this are you on. Are you here to protect the community, or are you here to protect Civitas's profits? If you deny this permit, we will celebrate you for fulfilling your mission to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. If you approve this permit, you'll be remembered for selling us out in the name of Civitas profits. So please do the right thing, deny this permit. Thank you for the time.
Thank you for presenting. Nicole Shea Niebler.
Hello, my name is Nicole Shea Niebler. I am a concerned citizen in Denver. I wanted to start with the term acute lymphoblastic leukemia. That's abbreviated by ALL. It is a severe and deadly cancer that children get and are more likely to be exposed to and have higher rates of if you approve this permit. It is a direct correlation. Your decision-making rules are wrong because they minimize the adverse impacts on health and welfare instead of actually acknowledging them and trying to prevent them. We have Colorado-specific and Colorado-conducted studies proving this. In May 2025, the Colorado Anschutz published a study finding Colorado children living within 8 miles, that's 8 miles, not 0.5 miles, but 8 miles of a gas and oil well site are at a higher risk of this ALL leukemia. That means there's a 59% chance that they get leukemia. It is a direct correlation. Christine Dayton also mentioned this, but the 300 million or more expected or anticipated revenue from the oil and gas sites going to school funding is coming at what cost? Because long-term education funding means long-term education funding. Kids can't learn if they're dead or going to chemo for their cancer caused by these oil and gas sites. And I know Tabor, the taxpayer's bill of rights, may seem like we need to keep schools funded by oil and gas money. But that money going to education from oil and gas sites is barely a drop in the bucket compared to the increased health costs and childhood deaths caused by benzene-induced ALL cancer. I know many of you have not been actually listening to the public comments, and that makes me deeply unhappy as a human being who's here giving you my time on this earth. But I hope you know that if you do approve this permit, children will die of cancer because of your vote. I hope that you are listening, and I hope that you do not want children to die. However, a vote yes on this means you would rather have children die of leukemia and cancer than deny this permit. Oil and gas money is not worth children deaths, no matter the cost. Especially in Aurora, we need to stand up for our community members, and I urge you to vote no.
Thank you. Next on my list is Jason Ephraim, but I'm not seeing that he's in the panel.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Ephraim requested to be moved down the list due to a conflict, so we will come back to him later.
All right, then we've got Patricia Garcia Nelson.
Good afternoon, commissioners.
I hope everyone's having a great day. My name is Patricia Garcia Nelson. I am speaking today on behalf of Green Latinos, asking the ECMC to deny the permit submitted by Civitas. Under SB 181 and your cumulative impacts rules, you must evaluate the operator's compliance record, the impact of proposed location, and whether the operator can truly avoid, minimize, and mitigate the risks to public health, safety, welfare, and the environment. Civitas Resources and all of their subsidiary companies, including Crestone, carry substantial compliance violations across the state, nearly $9 million in environmental and air quality penalties, including significant air pollution violations, environmental protection failures, and most recently, 2025 enforcement actions for falsified lab reports. And I know that's still under investigation, but it doesn't look good. In addition, the CDPHE CAP consultation letter for the Lowry Ranch dated May 3rd, 2024, part of the docket 22-10282, clearly identifies that this site, the Sunlight Long pad, poses one of the highest public risks in the entirety of the CAP. CDPHE notes that the residential areas, or excuse me, notes that the proximity to residential areas, to a school, and then location is within the Denver North Range non-attainment area. CDPHE also documented public concern referencing a complaint filed by STAR. This designation by the state's own health agency shows that the Sunlight Long pad carries the highest impact of the entire CAP. It is critical that part of the some of the considerations are not just for this pad, but in addition to the entirety of Civitas's network, their subsidiary companies. That is what we have done to support your enforcement ability and enforcement actions. Finally, under Rule 525, you have robust enforcement authority, including the ability to impose substantial penalties, require corrective actions, restrict or deny new permits, or suspend operating privileges in the state of Colorado, especially when a pattern of violations exist. Civitas compliance history, combined with elevated risk documented by CDPHE, demonstrates that the operator has not met the standard required for a safe and responsible operation at this location. And finally, I just want to remind you that at Bella Romero, our biggest concerns were that there would be leaks, that the company would go bankrupt, or that the site would explode. Within a year of production, the only thing that didn't happen is the site didn't explode. Everything we were told would never happen did, and I'd like you to consider that as well.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you spending time with us this morning. Sally Engen.
Yep, I am here. So, commissioners, here we are again. So I'm not going to be professional like the last speakers, because by now you are well versed in the multiple reasons why allowing Sunlight Long to be approved is such a horrific idea. It renders myself and people I talk to speechless. Why, everyone says. That's the biggest question. Why do they have to have this here? Greed. That's all it is. Supposedly, right next to our homes, there's more oil and gas. So therefore, the operators can make more money. Money that we will not see. Yes, they'll build us a playground and buy some sporting tickets for kids, give a fraction of their profits to our schools. In the meantime, fracking will make us sick and it will kill some of us. So I come from a middle-class family. Our family worked hard. Sometimes all we had were saltines and butter to eat for a snack, but I never had to go hungry. I rarely got a new pair of shoes. I wore hand-me-downs. I had an older sister, but we were happy. Salt of the earth type. I was the first in my family to go to college. From there, my husband and I held jobs and then started our own businesses in construction and printing. I have worked so very hard in my life. In 1993, we were able to build our dream house on a couple of acres, 1 mile from the reservoir that Aurora was just starting to build. I have personally touched every 2x4 nail and electrical cord that runs through this house. I more than just love it here. We built this house while raising our 2 young children, running small businesses. Suffice it to say, there was no downtime. We worked hard, and we worked long, long hours. We've been working since we were 16 years old. 50 years. And now it's time for me to retire. I was hoping that maybe I'd get 10 years where I can travel and see to fruition many of the personal projects I have not yet had time to do. But here I am talking to you, hoping I can see my grandchildren grow up, maybe even make it to when they go to college. So I don't know about this study, hasn't been talked about a lot, the scientific study from Harvard in 2022 that states the elderly living near fracking are at a higher risk of early death. Are you really going to let that happen to me? And if you do, who the hell gives you that right? Also, my grandchildren live 8 miles from this monstrosity. Are you going to choose to make them sick also? Maybe it won't be my grandkids, but it absolutely will be someone else's grandkids. Again, who the hell gives you that right? Yeah, I'm mad. The people you are supposed to protect are not a bunch of NIMBYs who don't want to look at something ugly in their backyard. We want to live and live as healthy as we can for as many years as we are given. The information you have been hearing is not speculation. It is from hard scientific facts, and I happen to like science. And if you do not believe these facts, I can only assume you also believe the world is flat. Deny sunlight long.
Thank you. Now we have Heidi Leithwood.
Hi, Commissioners. Thank you for taking comment today. I'm here on behalf of 350 Colorado to ask you to deny this permit. Basically, I'm here to support community, to underline all the comments that you've been hearing from the community for months and today. Their legal case, there are a lot of valid reasons why you should use your authority to deny this permit. I want to emphasize that public comment should not just be a box to be checked. It should be reflected in your decision. And there are thousands of other community members that will be impacted by these wells that either don't know about this or just have not had the capacity to participate. And then lastly, among all of the valid reasons to deny this permit, the new health study by Dr. Lisa McKenzie that you've been hearing a lot about. And I just, I have a very personal interest in this study. I've studied the study. I actually also interviewed Dr. McKenzie on a podcast. And children are at risk with medium intensity oil and gas activity up to 8 miles away. And this was an extremely rigorous study. There have been other studies. This one basically accounted for all the possible variables. And the one thing that Dr. McKenzie said was they can't do the quote unquote gold standard study because they can't purposely put people in danger in order to see if in order to do the kind of scientific study where you subject people to harms and then study whether they're affected. They cannot do that. It's not ethical. So anyway, I don't think that you've had a chance to completely digest what this new health study means for your policy. And I would just urge you not to make any decisions that are going to be potentially putting children's lives in danger. And I think you need more time to think about that, and that you shouldn't be giving permits in the meantime before you decide what these new studies, what the implications are for your decisions. So again, on behalf of 350 Colorado, please deny this permit. Please listen to community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Commissioners, we've got about 20 more public comment. I'm going to suggest we take a 15-minute break and then come back at 1, and then just go ahead and move through the rest without taking a more formal, lengthy lunch break. So let's return at 1 o'clock, and then we will start back up.
We are at a breaking to 1. Public comments so far, all against. I was expecting some for. I mean, just oil and gas industry hitting up their people, either if they work for the company or family members of people work for the company. They typically have like email lists and people they can shuttle out, or I guess in this instance it would be to zoom in. Um, but we haven't seen that so far. So either they're maybe on the end, um, or they didn't get them to sign up in time. But just in general, I think we've heard some really powerful public comments for reasons against the site. What Heidi brought up there of like, there are some different health studies we have done that point towards increased cancer and health risks, and the only reason we really don't have stronger science is because we would have to put people into situations where they have a chance to have cancer to have stronger science. Hearing from a lot of concerned parents, grandparents, and really just a huge breadth of perspectives from climate change to water impacts. And then the guy who pulled up the 90-second clip from a podcast showing how oil and gas is not afraid to pay scientists to give some data that benefits them. They've done this in the past, and some of the studies and the research that they do ongoing are from industry people who work for them, and or work for maybe like an institute or an organization that gets money from them. And so bringing up peer-reviewed studies brought up by universities, CU Anschutz, is really strong because these are public institutions who are just trying to figure out what's going on. We're 10. I think they said there's 40 people signed up, so we're only a quarter through. We started about an hour ago, so it's, 3 minutes per person, so 10 is 30 minutes. I feel like we're going a little bit slower than that. I guess they're not cutting people off, so they're giving some people some extra time. I've been trying to get some work done, emails, creative work. While I listen, I'll probably step away a little bit in this next few hours of public comment. Just try to get some work done, feed myself. But yeah. If you're watching this live or later, let me know what you think. Any people's comments that stuck with you. Over the next 2 days, they're going to hear from the industry, and then they're going to hear from Save the Aurora Reservoir. I won't be able to live stream tomorrow, which is the industry's presentation. I want to say it goes industry tomorrow, and then star in the final vote/discussion on Friday. But I will be around for Friday, the finale, as you might say. Where at the very least would like some type of delay to better, I think, research the recent public health studies and the impacts to community. But ideally a no vote to approve this project. Like someone had mentioned, nowhere in this agreement is like, if they are to pollute or go over certain levels, are they told to stop? And so once it's approved, even if they start breaking the law or having to pay fines and are having issues, they kind of, at that point, are already approved and built out. Like, they can keep operating. And the reason that they don't really mind too much is fines kind of just end up being a cost of doing business. Something they can easily make up, because they're making millions, if not over time, billions of dollars off these public resources. And some of it sure goes to schools and other, like someone had mentioned, a park. But the main benefit is the oil and gas companies themselves. And I think part of the reason they like this site, and I've been trying to get something in the, well, there are some sites in the Aurora area, but close to the Aurora Reservoir, is they need lots of water. An ability to bring in water to have a 30 plus pad drilling site. It's millions of gallons of water. And then additionally, they're near pipelines where they can pull water from, but also they can pump oil and gas into pipelines that can go to refineries, but also can go to shipping ports. Typically, the lines I think go from Colorado and they go towards Texas. And then Texas actually, through there, can export a lot of it. So a lot of this isn't even for like domestic supply or like reducing costs for us locally. It's actually for a mix of exporting and profits. I will now also take my break. I have this little graphic. And we will see what the comments are like. I will probably be less active in this next section, but you know, we're gonna have for the record some of these public comments and hearing some really powerful things from people. So thank you to people who have commented so far or signed up to comment here in a bit. We'll tune back in soon.
All right, it's 1 o'clock. We're going to get started back up in docket 2412000313. This is the public comment portion of the session. We have a list of folks that have signed up. We skipped Jason Ephraim earlier because we couldn't find him, but I see that he's with us now. So, Mr. Ephraim, I'm going to start off with you, if that's okay.
Yes, thank you. Apologies. I had a meeting that conflicted, so thank you for squeezing me in. Thank you, commissioners. I appreciate the time. I am a current homeowner, former resident of South Shore neighborhood. I moved out recently, primarily because of the fracking in this, but I wanted to come and speak to you today. Main point, I have here the notice of completeness determination letter that was sent out. I believe that's in accordance with Rule 303E. This is to alert all impacted parties about details of the notice of completeness, the project, and everything. And first thing I noticed when I looked at it was, I've seen the third amended application that has timelines. Construction January of 2026 or Q1, drilling third quarter 2026, completions first quarter 2027. And then it's preceded by a letter written by the operator, Civitas. I can provide a copy of this. I mean, thousands of people got this thing, so I'm not alone. And on the second page of this, it summarizes the timeline as Q1 2027 construction phase start, Q2 2027 drilling phase start, and also references a table at kind of the end of the letter that breaks it down a little bit more specific, but construction starting January 1st, 2027. So, my assertion is this is the formal notice that's required to go out to the thousands of people that are impacted to inform them of the project, prompt them for applying for affected party status, for giving public comment, basically to get involved. And by having these very conflicting and materially different timelines, you couldn't say that anybody got this knows the timeline for this project, and that their decisions on whether to participate, to apply, to move, what have you, is fundamentally impacted. If it didn't have this formal letter, then it would just have the third amended application and have the same timeline that we all operate under, no problem. But by having this conflicting date, I almost put as the summary and as like the overriding date, nobody knows what's going on. And secondly, I'd just like to highlight, the reading of some of those letters in the beginning of this meeting really highlighted. We had the earlier OGDP and deliberation. State Land Board didn't comment. The Weld County, city officials didn't comment. But it does seem like when we have what I would assume is probably the most, publicly contested OGDP and ECMC history, certainly in Arapahoe County and in Aurora, there's a swell of comments and people getting involved and basically saying no. It's interesting to see how many seemingly unprompted government bodies, people that were involved in the process, stamped their approval, gave reasoning, are still jumping in and giving more approval or validating their reasoning, almost in meeting that opposition, the public on one end and everybody else. We saw this with Arapahoe County and their very detailed and long letter for all the comments and things like that, basically saying, here's why that's not applicable or why we approved it and things like that. So I'd take that under advisement that when we have groups coming in that, are voicing their support, that were involved, that it's interesting when you see that in some projects where the community is directly involved and very vocal in opposition, but not in others like the previous OGDP hearing that we had, the beginning of today, where there isn't, why aren't they commenting there? So thank you. I apologize. I went over a little bit. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Ephraim. Ramesh Pat is next.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm not able to unmute my video because yes, now I can do that. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Ramesh Bhatt. I'm here to urge you to deny the permit. Presenters before me have spoken eloquently of the myriad problems with this OGDP, including truck traffic, proximity to new homes, the use of enormous quantities of water, concerns about wildlife and emergency preparedness, problems with permitting new wells in an area that have not met ozone standards for over 20 years, and so on and on. I won't repeat all of these points. However, I want to underscore one fact. the fact that this large facility is too close to the reservoir to be safe. According to the EPA, fracking companies use over 1,600 different chemicals during oil and gas production operations. Many of these chemicals are toxic and carcinogenic, and the characteristics of many others are unknown. In 2022, Colorado passed House Bill 1348, which requires disclosure of all chemicals used in all downhole operations in the state. Yet, 2.5 years after the adoption of the law, the ECMC has yet to require operators to disclose drilling chemicals. This is important because Colorado has banned 22 chemicals from fracking fluids as against drilling. Reports from Ohio indicate that at least 5 of these chemicals are being used during drilling. These chemicals are ethyl hexanol, trimethylbenzene, butoxyethanol, dioxane, and xylenes. Let me reiterate. These chemicals are so toxic that the ECMC has said that they cannot be used during fracking. Yet the same chemicals are being used during drilling operations, and nothing is being done about it. Given the state of affairs, it would be highly dangerous and premature to allow such a highly polluting and secretive industry to function less than a mile from the major reservoir. I strongly urge you to not permit this facility. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. I believe now we've got Amanda Stevenson.
Yes, sorry. Okay. I am speaking in the place of Ann Hussein. She was not able to speak today, so I am speaking for me. Good afternoon. My name is Amanda Stevenson. I have one last thing to say to you to convince you to deny. Was it not enough to see the community show up as it did several weeks ago? We, as a community, do not want this. Today, my comment is personal. I ask you to have empathy and put yourself in our place. Be the good person. Do the right thing. The hard thing. Would you buy a house tomorrow for your family here? If the answer is no, then why risk our families if you are not willing to risk your own? I looked at your bios on the ECMC. Mike Cross, it says, Mike enjoys spending time with his wife and 2 children, enjoying Colorado's great outdoors. Mike, my question to you would be, have you ever enjoyed the Aurora Reservoir? Played there in the sand with your kids? Taken a bike ride there? If you haven't, I highly recommend. If you say yes to this location, will you visit the reservoir in the future? And if the answer is no, ask yourself why. And then ask yourself, why are you okay with doing this to the people who live here now? For the others I am about to address, I imagine you have families as well, but you probably did not share the information on your bios because you want to protect your families. We too are trying to protect our families. Brett, in your bio, substantial experience in environmental protection, wildlife protection, or reclamation. Brett, be the protector of our environment. You have the know-how to do that. Jeff Robbins, quote, regulating in a manner that is protective of public health, safety, welfare, wildlife, and the environment. Jeff, this site is not protective of public health, safety, welfare, wildlife, environment, and you know it. Use your law degree to help us. John Messner, he also serves as chair of the newly developed Colorado Produced Water Consortium. John, how can you justify the amount of contaminated water that is going to be used for this site? You are supposed to protect our water, so protect it. Trisha, a member of the Boulder Water Resource Advisory Board. Trisha, I went to school in Boulder. I know Boulder, and I know how much that town protects its environment. This is why I love Boulder. Will you not do the same for Aurora? My parents bought their land and built our home here 40 years ago. As I have grown, I have come to appreciate and feel such gratitude for their choices as to where I grew up and to become who I am today. But now I am afraid. I'm afraid for my children who spend all of their breaks, sick days, and holidays with their grandparents. I'm afraid for my parents who this is their forever home, for they are going to get sick. I'm afraid for myself as I work here every day, to fear when I drink water from our well that has been contaminated by fracking. Don't destroy us. We are you. You are us. Help us do the right hard thing. The right thing. break tradition and push for something that you will get a positive recognition for. Be the legacy that left oil and gas behind and push for something better. Have the legacy of being the protector of all the people affected by Sunlight Long. Be that person. Deny Sunlight Long. Thank you.
Thank you. We now have Kerrigan Flynn.
Hi there. My name is Kerrigan Flynn, and I am commenting on the Sunlight Lawn Oil and Gas Plan permit as a resident and homeowner less than 8 miles away from the proposed location. I thank you for your time and attention. I am commenting to urge that the permit for this project be denied due to data-driven concerns about the harmful impact to public health, safety, welfare, environment, and wildlife ecosystem, as well as a more economically driven opinion that this project would be a poor long-term investment for the ECMC. The Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment has already flagged this location as one of the highest risk locations in the Lowry CAP due to its proximity to homes like mine and schools like the one I can see outside my window. In an area already struggling with air pollution, less than a mile from the second largest reservoir supplying the city, per the Aurora Gov water system website, I would argue that the risk of this project experiencing spills, inadequate mechanical integrity, improper injection, discharge, or improper disposal or storage of hydraulic fracturing wastewater, fluids, or chemicals at any point in the process is too high, with too great an impact on a city with a growing population of 414,000 people. And if that does not concern you enough, I would argue that starting a new oil and gas project in this area, in this time, of this size, is a bad investment. Every independent energy researcher I have known tells me that oil and gas is the past, not the future. If you do not believe the evidence that this project will damage our safety and environment in its process, you still cannot deny that its natural gas products will. The U.S. Energy Information Administration reported that renewable energy sources, primarily wind and solar, accounted for 43% of Colorado's in-state electricity net generation in 2024 in a rising trend. Aurora is home to a lot of plains and a lot of wind. Many of my neighbors have invested their own money into solar panels already and successfully avoided reliance on gas energy, although they will still have to experience the reduced property values and damages to their health if this project is approved. I and many other commenters know that this use of our public land would be harmful to the public in the face of better alternatives. It is stuck in the past, unsustainable, unpopular, and unconscionable. It is for these reasons that I strongly urge you to deny the Sunlight Lawn oil and gas permit. Thank you again.
Thank you. We now have Jennifer Finger.
Hi, thank you for taking time to listen to my comments. I'm commenting today as a community member and also a mom of 4. I'm not just asking, I'm begging at this point that this project be denied until there's some more information. I feel like the health risks to our kids that the current research is showing is just far too great. And I have 4 little beings that will be a half a mile away all day long at school and all day long in their house and be exposed to all the cancer-causing chemicals that will be put into the air. And as I look at the community right around there, it's not just my 4 little guys that I'm worried about. It's also all the schools. Altitude Elementary has 800 kids. Fox Ridge Middle School is less than a mile away with 1,000 kids. Cherokee Trail is right there with 3,000 kids. Woodland, I think, has another 500, and Infinity Middle School has another 1,000. I mean, we're talking about over 6,000 kids that will be around these chemicals 24 hours a day. And you are the individuals that are standing and will make the choice of whether or not that's going to be, sorry, I'm not speaking very well, how much their health is going to be affected by this. And I think that we're at a point in history right now where we're going to be the people that make the decision, right? We're going to be the parents that decide if we're going to move out of this community. You guys are going to be the ones that decide if you're going to let this go through, because the research is emerging. And more is emerging every day, but we actually have the information. 10 years ago, they didn't know about the health risks. We do know about the health risks, and the legislation just hasn't caught up. We need to be at least 8 miles away from these sites to minimize some of the effects and keep our children alive and healthy. And the research is there, but the policy is still just a matter of feet, allowing these sites to go in, just being a half a mile from our kids. But when our kids are sick a few years from now, and this is all over the news, in the media, I feel like we're going to be, you know, hopefully a smaller version of the Love Canal, right? Like we know about it. We can't say that we didn't know. I really urge you and beg you to please halt this or move it back or use other sites farther away. It's just far too close, and there are too many kids involved. I'm also a school social worker of 25 years in the Aurora community, and I was walking through one of the affected elementary schools just yesterday, and I'm just looking at all those little human beings, and I'm wondering 5 years from now, which one of them is going to be the one that's no longer with us? Which life did we sacrifice in order to be able to have that extra school funding that would come just from this pad site? I wholeheartedly agree that the money going to fund schools is great. Obviously, that's what I've dedicated my life to, is Aurora's kids and Aurora's schools. But this is far too great of a risk. Kids will be sick, and you are handed the choice right now of whether or not you are going to trade their health and their lives in order for the additional revenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Randy Willard.
There we go. Good day, Commission. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Randy Willard, and I'm a resident of Southeast Aurora. This week, there's an opportunity for an outcome that would show that Colorado's rules are the toughest and the best in the nation. It's an opportunity for this commission to support a community that is fully engaged with the state-mandated process. With all of the blowback from the current administration and the push to drill, it must be harder to sit in your seats this year. That makes it all the more important that you represent Colorado and our rules and regulations just as you always have, with an inward-facing view. We are still a democratic federal republic comprised of states with states' rights, last I checked. That means we are independent in the case of oil and gas development, free to have and enforce our own rules. So that brings us to this week's Sunlight Long hearing. And you are well aware how involved the public has been with this pad and this location. Southeast Aurora is not a DIC. It's a bustling part of Aurora with over 60,000 residents and tens of thousands of homes. What comes with homes? Commercial development, of course, shops, offices, and schools. More and more studies show the combination of density and proximity to be a major health concern when permitting unconventional oil and gas development. Studies from Colorado, Pennsylvania, and Texas, all major fracking states with large renowned universities, show the impact of fracking on health. We're just 20 years into this fracking experiment, and some things are becoming quite clear. The amount of water required to flush the sought-after resources is increasing. Some states are experiencing subsidence in which the land drops because the material holding the land up has been removed or disrupted. Frack-ins and frack-ups are increasing in every state that allows fracking. It's also clear that our climate is impacted by the greenhouse gases that are emitted, and global temperatures continue to rise. Further, it is clear that there are many new oil and gas finds every year around the globe. With the U.S. producing 40% more than it needs, one has to wonder why we suffer the impacts of extraction, only to have another country use our resource. Finally, it's important to note that the resources extracted here will likely end up out of state and will not impact our prices. One last thing I'd like to call out is that we continue to experiment on our children. Their bodies are growing and changing, and the impacts from chemicals and processes used for fracking can destroy young bodies. Leukemia risks are much higher, as you've heard, near unconventional oil and gas development. Pulmonary or lung issues are quite common as well, with exacerbating impacts to those with asthma. On high ozone days, many in the community cannot even leave their homes for fear of being unable to breathe. These are all real impacts of fracking. BMPs don't help the person with asthma. Nothing can help a parent that has just received a leukemia diagnosis for their child. So let's use this week to flex those rules and regs to come to a decision that embraces the spirit and intent of SB 19181, one that protects community, health, and environment, one which reduces the anxiety of the parents in the community about the impact of these wells so close to schools, one that honors the beauty of our state and the sanctity of our lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is someone named Allison. I don't have a last name. Allison, I see there's an Allison on the screen. If you want to unmute. Okay, let's just keep going and maybe Miss or Allison can unmute it later. Let's go to Bobby Mooney.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, and we can see you.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners. My name is Bobby Mooney. I'm a member of 350 Colorado, a Colorado-based nonprofit organizing locally to solve the climate crisis and transition to a sustainable future. We have over 18,000 members across the state, some of whom are here today, and even more who have submitted written comments to you regarding this proposed fracking plan. 350 Colorado stands firmly opposed to the state Sunlight Long fracking plan. Alongside our members, local residents, Save the Aurora Reservoir community members, and all the concerned Coloradans attending this hearing, we ask you to deny this application. As you know, the oil and gas sector is the largest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions in Colorado. It surpasses transportation, electricity generation, and all fuel use in homes, businesses, and industry. The act of extracting oil and gas alone produces more climate pollution than any other activity category in our state. The consequences for Colorado are already severe. Longer droughts, more intense heat waves, devastating wildfires followed by floods, declining snowpack, increased disease risk, and mounting strain on mental health. Our agriculture, recreation, and wildlife are all under pressure. Since 1980, climate-related disasters have cost Colorado between $20 and $50 billion. And according to the social cost of carbon set in our state law, pollution from oil and gas operations will inflict more than $13 billion in damages between 2020 and 2030. Every new well adds to this burden. The scientific consensus is unequivocal at this point. To avoid the worst outcomes of climate change, we must stop expanding fossil fuel infrastructure. That means no new extraction sites, no new pipelines, and no new permits for fracking. Approving Sunlight Long would mean ignoring that science. It would mean prioritizing short-term industry gains over long-term public health, safety, and climate stability. So I urge you to consider the full costs, not just in dollars, but in lives, ecosystems, and trust. Reject this proposal, protect our water, protect our communities, and help lead Colorado towards a future that doesn't sacrifice health for extraction. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to attempt to hear from Allison again.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, and we can see you.
Great. Sorry, I got kicked off the meeting for a second. My name is Allison. I'm here as a concerned community member. I was born and raised in the Denver metro area. And I am demanding, not asking you to reject this permit. I don't have to remind you all that it is mid-November, nearly Thanksgiving, and it has been in the mid-60s to 70s and even 80s this month, and it has yet to snow. We as Coloradans are well aware of the risks of drought to our drinking water, our public health, wildfire risk, agricultural output. I could go on. This shows that the climate crisis is not this far off thing in the future. It is here and it is happening now. We are not running out of time. We are out of time, which means that we cannot afford any new fossil fuel projects in this state, particularly ones that are near communities, near schools, homes, and drinking water. I know many of the other commenters have already brought your attention to these studies that you yourselves as commissioners have highlighted about childhood cancer rates, but I want to reiterate that if you approve this project, childhood death, childhood cancer will be on your hands. Once again, childhood cancer will be your fault. And I hope that keeps you up at night. We cannot afford this project. Moreover, the effects will spread out farther than just in Aurora. They will affect our entire state. We remember the Marshall Fire, the flooding that just happened in Southwest Colorado. These climate disasters do not discriminate. You have the opportunity here to help prevent these disasters from happening again. But today or later this week, if you choose to approve this permit, you will be telling the victims of those disasters, I do not care what happened to you, and I will happily let it happen again. You have a choice here. Protect children, protect families, protect our environment, uphold your statutory requirement to do so, or have the death of children on your hands, potential death from future climate disaster on your hands. It's up to you. Deny, 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 deny. Thank you.
Thank you. We now have Misha Mar.
I don't have video, it was turned off, but
That's okay. We can hear you fine.
okay, perfect. There we go. Hello, my name is Misha Mar. I'm here to speak about the economic impacts of the proposed state Sunlight Long OGDP. I appreciate your attention today. I live in Aurora, less than a quarter mile from the Aurora Reservoir with my family. We chose this community for its natural beauty and safety. We did not purchase our home to see industrial wells and pads built next to our neighborhood and threaten our way of life. Our home is our family's investment, and its value and our quality of life are directly tied to the health of our environment. The applicant claims this project will bring economic benefits, but those claims ignore the real costs that will be borne by the public and more specifically our community. Heavy truck traffic will damage our roads. Emergency response services will be stretched thin. Long-term air and water monitoring will fall on taxpayers. And most importantly, pollution from these operations will increase health risks for families like mine. The operator should not be allowed to profit while the public pays the price in infrastructure damage, pollution, and risk to the Aurora Reservoir. Our drinking water source and our cornerstone of the local recreation economy are very important. I respectfully request that the Commission deny the Rule 411 variance and require a full independent cost-benefit analysis. This analysis must include public health costs, taxpayer liability, climate impacts, and the long-term financial risks of weakening drinking water protections. I thank you for your time and for considering the voices of the families who live here, and I ask you to put yourselves in our shoes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we had.
I don't know why I did that. It's
Hi,
no.
sorry, is it my turn? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
I would say stand by, Ms. Chator, for just one moment. It looks like we may have lost the chair. Stand by, please.
All right, sorry.
Yeah, it maybe because the chair fell off the call, it moved the screen around, so this, but I can't change the size or where the speaker is anymore. So if when he comes back, if it's not fixed, I think I can go full screen and I just have to might tweak things again. But we're in wait and see, I guess. Wait and see some more powerful, good comments. No one's wanting to put their name on record to support it publicly from the community, which doesn't surprise me. But, well, it surprised me no industry people have shown up yet. And I did, I guess, miss a few. But,
I
think
spoke
I
with
only
the
missed
chair.
like two.
Madhvi, you can go ahead and begin. We'll keep going, and he will be on as soon as he can. He can't hear right now. He's just trying to log back on. So please begin when you're ready.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, commissioners. I'm Monty Couture, 14-year-old warrior and youngest child advisor. By the way, I am taking this testimony in my spirit. I'm here to plead with you all to deny this permit, or at least order an alternate location analysis and move the state sunlight longbow pad farther away from homes and schools. We are all aware that this is a humongous mega pad of size supporting 32 to 64 wells. I am not opposed to fracking in itself, but I am opposed to unethical fracking in your homes, your schools. I'm opposed to unethical fracking that puts profits first and compromises public health, ecosystems, and wildlife above all our life potential: air, water, soil, and food. If there is a clean fracking solution, I am for it. Water is a very scarce resource here in Colorado, and Colorado is also the headwater state. Why should the oil and gas industry be allowed to use pristine, readily available water? Why can't they be mandated to use recycled wastewater? Putting limits on just ounces of water of layman consumption instead of stopping the billions of gallons of water that Civitas and the oil and gas industry would be using is very unethical. Even the state land board's letter that was read earlier today did not mention anything related to the study or the need of protection of the pronghorn habitats nor the threatened northern leopard frogs. I have traveled widely to many well pads and drilling locations in the Permian Basin in Texas and in New Mexico, Dracula well pad in Pennsylvania, super pads in the Marcellus Shale, etc., etc. This state sunlight long well pad stands out in terms of scale and density and is among the largest and most densely packed well pads in the United States. Residents near oil and gas operations have repeatedly reported serious health impacts from unseen emissions. I repeat, unseen emissions, even from small well pads or single wells. If this project is approved, it is highly likely that young children ages 5 to 10 living and attending schools within 3.1 miles from these wells would face similar and acute and repeated health impacts like leukemia, lymphoma, etc. Commissioner Jeff Robbins, and other members of the commission, I ask you to answer these questions when you deliberate your decision. Do you want these impacts to be repeated in this Aurora neighborhood? Do you want the children here to suffer as they did elsewhere? Will you weigh the potential risks to the health and well-being of our children when deciding whether to approve this well pad or not? My rights as a child and that of other children to clean air, clean water, clean soil, clean food, and great health are in jeopardy. The health risks are not hypothetical. Weigh the evidence. Protect children's health and say no to this project or order an alternate location analysis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you being.
Mr. Thomas, who do we have next?
My apologies. We have Amber Golden next.
Hello,
Why don't you go ahead,
commissioners.
Ms. Golden?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Amber Golden, and I'm a resident of Talons Reach. My home is approximately 2.5 miles from the proposed well pad. Like my neighbors, I'm here today because I love this community. I walk around and paddleboard on the Aurora Reservoir with my family. I breathe this air, I drink this water. I'm looking out my window right now at just this beautiful community in which we live.
And like every parent, every neighbor, I want our children to grow up healthy and safe. That's why this proposed well pad terrifies me greatly. We already live in a region designated as a severe ozone non-attainment zone, which means our air is already failing to meet basic federal health standards. On peak ozone days, oil and gas activity can add up to 30 parts per billion to our air. And in their own cumulative impacts report, Civitas acknowledges enormous emissions for each pad, the volatile organic compounds, the ozone precursors, the pollution that settles into the lungs of the people who live closest. And we are being asked to accept that pollution for decades. And for what? A project placed dangerously close to our homes, our schools, and the reservoir that supplies our drinking water. A project that will permanently remove staggering volumes of water from our already strained supply. And a project from an operator with documented spills already this year. In today's Denver Post article underscores just how precious our water is. According to today's article, Aurora City Council is now encouraging restaurants to stop automatically serving water. It's not a joke, it's in the Denver Post today. So not because it will save a meaningful amount, but because the city is trying to account for every single drop. When our own leaders are asking servers to think twice before pouring a glass of water, how can we possibly justify a project like this one, which would permanently remove millions of gallons from our supply and risk contaminating the reservoir that sustains us? The contrast is striking. Residents are being asked to conserve at the micro level, while this proposal demands water at a scale that dwarfs those efforts. It raises an obvious question. Why are we counting every single drop at the table, but not every single drop that would be destroyed by this drilling? When I moved to this community 4 years ago, I envisioned this home as our forever home. Now we will move after the school year to protect our family's health from fracking. Other discerning families will also choose to leave due to this devastating issue of fracking so close to our neighborhoods and schools. You have the power to protect the people who live here. I'm asking you from a place of deep care for this community to deny this permit and choose the health and future of Aurora over irreversible harm. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from Andrew Pinkowitz.
Hello, Chairman, Commissioners, and fellow community members. My name is Andrew Pinkowitz. I live in the Centennial and Southeast Aurora area, close to the Aurora Reservoir. I'm a father to my 2-year-old son, Eli, who I brought to the last hearing on this topic in Elizabeth, Colorado. On behalf of my family, neighbors, and broader community, I implore ECMC to deny the Sunlight Long fracking permit due to the extensive health risks presented to residents of the surrounding community with Civitas's and Crestone's proposed 32 wells in their mega well pad. The latest science is clear about the severe health risks with residential fracking. The Sunlight Long mega well pad would expose communities in Arapahoe County to those exact same risks, including releasing 73,000 tons of air pollutants, including volatile organic compounds or VOCs, exposing over 10,000 households to health risks, including asthma, heart disease, and childhood cancer, and risking the contamination of 3.9 billion gallons of fresh drinking water in a state with a severe water crisis. Remember these numbers: 73,000, 10,000, and 3.9 billion after I speak today, please. In my hand, I am holding the 286-page ECMC Director's Recommendation, and I read every single line. Pages 2 and 5 state that the 3,840-acre site, page 5, is 3,188 feet east of the nearest houses, page 2, while the ECMC guideline for residential fracking is within 3,000 feet of residential building units, or RBUs. Does this account for the households which are, quote, 3,188 feet of the proposed location on page 12? Would they not be breathing in the same carcinogens released during fracking, like benzene? Can you guarantee that the schools a mile away will be free of leukemia risk as a direct result of these fumes when scientific research shows those within 8 miles are affected. Citation, public comment, proximity to schools. In the Elizabeth hearing, we also spoke about how, as stated in this report, the ECMC determined in 2024 that reports submitted by Crestone contained falsified data related to oil closure and gas facility spill remediation cleanup. Are we supposed to take a corporation at face value who has already lied when they say they won't lie again? Once water is contaminated, there are no do-overs. Also in this report, I hold over 800 comments submitted by residents of the community vociferously advocating against this project. Listen to them. Reject the Sunlight Long project to protect the families here in Aurora and Colorado. Thank you.
Thank you. We now will hear from Haley Young.
Hello, can we hear me? I can't see me, so.
Yeah, we can hear you and see you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I am here as a citizen of Arapahoe County, a mom and an engineer. My daughter's with me here. She's not feeling well today, and actually she had a lot of not feeling well this summer that corresponded with a lot of the poor air quality days. And she's spoken to your commission, and I would say that we are both very concerned about the future. We're concerned about what we're doing with our water, and even talking about what this oil and gas is going to be used for. I mean, realistically, probably a lot of AI data centers that are using more water. So, it's all very concerning that we'll continue to make these decisions. And the way we stop it is exactly what this community is doing right here. And the work that you are doing too. I mean, I think that Ackerman and Oath's work on starting these scientific panels is amazing. I think that as Ackerman said, that these community members starting to raise concerns and really fill in the gaps of where policy is, because that's what's failing us here is, it's a system that prioritizes companies and profits over people. It's a system that where you need ample reason to reject something, and there is ample reason for this Sunlight Long pad. I mean, it's massive. It's going to be so close to the reservoir. It's going to not only impact the air and water quality of the reservoir, and obviously the biological resources and ecological resources, but it will impact the revenue of the reservoir as well, which has been a huge economic resource for the community. Impacting the water. The water is another very important economic resource, and it's insane to think that this water could just be destroyed when we know we need it so much. And I'm working on my PhD, so I talk to a lot of academics, and it's interesting because academically, we can prove that, and there's been so many studies that have proven that every dollar that goes towards conservation and protection of biological resources pays for itself over 100-fold in normally less than 20 years. So this is the right choice economically, as well as health for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. We now will hear from Carolyn Waymeyer.
Hi, can you see me and hear me?
We can.
Okay, thanks. Hi, thank you for listening firstly. And my name is Caroline. My husband and I live here with our 2 children in South Shore. So we're very close to the proposed site for Sunlight Long. And we have spent years getting to this point and getting to this place in our lives, trying to have a great place for our children to grow up. And we're very careful with how we live as non-toxic as possible. We're careful with the cleaners we use, what food we provide, and unfortunately we find ourselves in this situation where we have no control over what's going on around us and the air we breathe. And we're especially concerned because we have a history of respiratory issues with our children. We've had hospitalizations in the past and spent time in the pediatric ICU. This is just, I don't know if you can see, but to give you a glimpse of one of our times in that situation. And so we're especially concerned what this will mean for us. And I know there's many other people in this community with similar health issues and health concerns. And as drastic as all the respiratory issues have been and the impact that's had on our lives, it's nothing compared to the cancer concerns. And in my opinion, it never even should have gotten to this point when you consider the risk and the cancer risks and having so many people live so close by and so many children. And I know many of us are terrified of what future may come for our children with this. And we are, as you've heard, pleading with you to please make the right call. Something keeps coming to mind. So if you happen to be a Star Wars fan, you can picture Leia saying, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're our only hope." That's, I think, how many of us feel. It's up to you guys to make the right call and protect us. And we are counting on you. And I want you to think about the studies you've heard, as well as think about the impact long-term studies have, how what we thought once was safe turns out it wasn't. And please don't take that chance on us. Please exercise caution. And that is assuming, even if you think it were safe, that's assuming nothing goes wrong. And as we know, there are spills, there are issues with containment, there's even issues with covering things up that we never even know about. And it just seems like an irresponsible risk to take when it is so close to so many homes, such a densely populated area with so many homes and schools. And excuse me, sorry. I fear that if this goes through, we will be the ones they write about in studies in 5, 10, 20 years, citing us and the experiences that we have, showing this was not actually a safe distance at all. So please, please stop this and protect us. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben Jackson?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. I'm gonna leave my video off because I'm in kind of a bad service spot, but thanks for letting me speak today. My name is Finn Jackson. I'm just a concerned citizen, and my views fall in line with what most of every commenter has said up until now, that I just am begging you to deny this project because of the health impacts, because of the environmental impacts. And the points I just kind of wanted to make are that, it's been said many, many times, your mission statement is to regulate oil and gas development, to consider the public health, safety, environment, wildlife resources. And I've just noticed that through this whole process, with the Lowry cap and all of these OGDPs, that community members have submitted thousands of comments, have just come out in droves constantly to oppose this project. And yet things keep getting approved. And so I think there's something really telling that if you approve this project today, you will finally be saying that you're listening to these community members. You're listening to their concerns about public health, about parts of your mission statement you're supposed to uphold. And you'd also be saying that you're upholding your mission statement. And the more that you deny these projects while bypassing, public concerns, shows that you aren't agreeing with those parts of it. And the other point I wanted to make is just kind of, some people have said it before, the state land board comments about revenue and how, yes, this will yield lots of revenue for schools in the future, but if we're really trying to think about the future of children, also considering their health, whether they'll have air to breathe, whether they'll have water to drink, is very important. We've seen, fracking pollutes the air and water, and those are, lower down. Those are more priority needs. As someone else said, you can't go to school if you don't, you can't breathe and you're malnourished. And, the state land board also mentioned a number of other revenue streams. So I would think that we could find a way to bring that 80% number down. And so, yeah, I just wanted to highlight those points today. Please, once again, I'm begging you to deny this permit. Thank you very much.
Thank you for presenting to us today. We're next going to go back to Jesse Floria.
Hello, my name's Jesse Floria. I live in Colorado, and yeah, I just want to reiterate what lots of other people are saying, just that there's a high environmental and health risk, and yeah, there's better solutions to the energy crisis we're experiencing right now. We need more solar and wind rather than fracking, and yeah, that's all I have to say. Just please don't approve this project, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Yvonne.
Okay. Hang on. No. Your turn. Can you say hi?
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. This is Yvonne and I'm Aston. My name is Yvonne Yap. I'm a concerned mother, a dentist, and a proud Australian. And before moving to Colorado, I knew nothing about fracking. It wasn't part of my life, my education, or even my imagination. My husband and I chose South Shore because of the lifestyle it promised. Bike trails, parks, and a beautiful reservoir where I could feel close to the water that reminds me of my home. And it felt like the perfect place to start our family. Also, we thought. My husband and I struggled for years before our little boy was born. He is now 2. I never imagined that instead of enjoying my hard-earned motherhood, I would be forced to become his advocate and fighting to protect him from industrial oil and gas operations planned alarmingly close to our community. I moved here for safety and stability. I never imagined raising my son within 3 miles of 97 wells, with another 58 just beyond that. I never imagined spending his toddler years studying oil and gas applications, handing out flyers, and losing sleep over whether we will have to leave our home, all because of a project we never asked for and we do not have a say in. But here we are, and my story is one of many hundreds. We are a community united and afraid. On September 11th, nearly 500 Coloradans attended the 511 hearing, the largest turnout in Colorado history. Parents, grandparents, teachers, medical professionals, and neighbors showed up because they are deeply afraid of what this megapad means for their health, their children, their water, and their future. And beneath that fear is a profound sense of betrayal. SB 19181 was meant to put health, safety, and the environment first, to ensure that oil and gas operations do not harm communities. But how is that protection being ensured? Electrification doesn't shield us. The applicant's own analysis shows 600,000 diesel truck miles, adding more pollution to an area already plagued by air quality alert days. And emergency response times are unacceptable. It would take 25 minutes to reach this site. We saw the speed at which the Marshall Fire destroyed entire neighborhoods. We're not asking for special treatment, just pleading for basic protection for our families and neighbors. Now let's recall what has happened since the Lowry Ranch cap approval, further demonstrating to us why this is such a bad idea. We saw a catastrophic Bishop Pad blowout, the kind of event we were told wouldn't happen, but it did. A 2025 Anschutz peer-reviewed study was published showing children living within 3 miles of oil and gas operations are twice more at risk to develop acute lymphoblastic leukemia. The increased risk doesn't magically stop at 3 miles. There was increased risk beyond that at 8 miles from such activity. How many children are you willing to put at risk in this insane science experiment? The answer appears to be thousands. Civitas investigated for submitting false data, potentially harming the public and resulting in a notice of alleged violation. We saw a securities lawsuit alleging mismanagement and misleading investors. We saw 9 pollution events documented by earthworks at Civitas facilities this year alone, and thousands of written and spoken comments urging the denial of Sunlight Long. This is not an operator that inspires trust, and
Excuse me,
certainly...
you're well past your 3 minutes.
Okay.
If you could kind of wrap up.
Yes.
I see your husband's next, I think, and so
Yes.
maybe we can segue to him to kind of
Okay.
keep on time.
All right. I just wanted to finish with invoking SB 19181, and this project does not meet the standard of protecting our health, safety, and welfare. It is not only acceptable to deny it, the law requires that it be denied. And that's it. Now my husband has asked if I could read his comment because he will be looking after my son.
Sure, go ahead. Let's reset the 3-minute timer. Okay, now you're ready to go.
Okay, hi, my name is Otto Lau. Commissioners, you hold tremendous power over our lives. You are being asked to make decisions that will impact children's cancer risk, respiratory health, pregnancy outcomes, and the long-term well-being of entire communities. If drilling next to homes is truly safe, prove it. Show us the evidence and show us the science. Show us that our children are being protected because right now, families like mine are terrified. It should not be our burden to prove that we are in harm's way. It is your legal and moral duty to regulate this industry to protect public health, safety, and welfare. Commissioner Oath, thank you for convening an expert panel to review the latest research and for updating us on its progress. We understand the report is expected in the second quarter of 2026 and look forward to the public finally having access to it. But that timing raises a critical question. How can this project move forward when the public still lacks the very information needed to understand its risks? Surely the Commission would want these findings available before considering the largest residential fracking proposal in Colorado's history. Colorado's families deserve answers, they deserve transparency, and above all, they deserve protection. Commissioners, the comments you've received are filled with the fears, anxiety, and the urgency of Coloradans asking you to protect them. Every letter represents a person, a child, a future. We are not data points, and this is not just another project. Remember when tobacco companies insisted that cigarettes were safe? Denying cancer risk, denying addiction, denying responsibility, while generations suffered. Decades later, the truth became undeniable, and cigarette packets were forced to display graphic warnings of the harm that they had hidden for so long. This right now is our tobacco moment. Science is at a tipping point and the health risks are mounting. Communities are pleading for protection and regulators will either act with courage or look away. And commissioners, you do not want to be on the wrong side of history, because history will remember who protected the public and who chose industry over people. You have the power to protect us. Under SB 19181, you have sworn an oath to protect public health, safety, welfare, wildlife, and the environment. That mandate is not optional. It is your responsibility. My son's future and the future of thousands of children depends on your decision. Please do not let industry profits outweigh human life. Please do not force families to choose between their homes and their health. And please do not allow residential fracking on a scale Colorado has never seen before. Thank you for your time and for listening to the people you are entrusted to protect.
Thank you very much for both comments. We now have Eric Gross.
Audio, there we go. Hi, committee. Since everyone else has already shared copious facts and concerns, I want to dive right into some questions about your implied intent to approve the Sunlight Long plan. First question, who do you work for? Next, can I come frack in your backyard? What about your front yard? How about next to your kid's school? I mean, I think I could get really rich. So don't worry if you can't afford to move. You can just breathe the air, drink the water, and get the cancer. It'll be fine, I'm sure. If your kids get sick, I mean, who cares anyway? I told you I'm gonna be rich. I'm not gonna pay for your health care either. I mean, come on, this is America. Come on. You're on your own. You're on your own. If you want to find me, I'll be on my yacht or maybe at my private compound. Feel free to try to enter. Who do you work for? When this natural gas, which is just a fossil fuel industry term for methane, ends up powering AI data centers that billionaire fascists want to build in Colorado, including on federal land, so that they can help process more data to kidnap more Americans and police our speech and freedoms. Can we put those AI data centers in your backyard too? I've heard they're very safe, very clean, no laws being broken at all. Don't worry about the noise or pollution because ICE is on its way to your house to kidnap you anyway. And it's probably quieter on a dead planet, so I don't really know what we're all complaining about. So who do you work for? If you don't want me to frack in your yard, okay. What about when my kid gets asthma or other health issues caused by your approval of this project? Can I send you the bill? Or who's going to pay for that health care? In exchange, how about we come fill your house with methane so that we have equal access to this beautiful, wonderful industry that you're prepared to promote? So who do you work for? Is Crestone even going to keep the gas in Colorado or is it going to export it? Are there any limits to what they can charge? Or do we get fucked on both ends with a destroyed environment and lighter bank accounts so that we can transfer our money to the already rich, planet killing oligarchs that pretend they care about humans or Colorado? So I really want to know, who do you work for? You are charged with protecting the health of the people of Colorado from the oil and gas industry, not working with them to promote their profits. So this is simple. Who benefits from the plan? Do Coloradans benefit? Do Aurora residents benefit? Do children benefit? Or is it only corporations and the ultra rich who benefit from further extraction of our community's resources in exchange for our lives, our health, and our futures? Deny this permit. Deny this permit. Deny this permit if you work for the people of Colorado. In closing, eat the rich.
Thank you, Mr. Gross. We now will hear from Sue Ebersparker.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, we've not been able to get Sue or Sakawat Hussein, our last two speakers, to accept our invitations to become panelists. If either of them would like to speak, I ask that they do raise their hand. Otherwise, they are the final two speakers that have signed up for public comment today.
Okay, Ms. Ebersparker and Mr. Hussein, if you desire to speak, now is the chance to raise your hand and we'll get you up on the panel here.
All right, I believe we have Mr. Hussein elevated now.
Mr. Hussein, if you want to unmute, we're ready to hear from you.
Okay. Here. Oh, your audio's done. Your audio's done. It's in your hearing aids. Okay.
Hold on, you just muted.
Mr. Hussein, you've muted again accidentally.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah.
Are we good?
Yes, we're good. We can hear you and see you.
We'll start with 3 seconds. Okay. My name is Sakawat Hussain, and I'm a physician. And I live 3,100 feet away from the sunlight lung in the 80016 zip code of the Southeast Aurora. The population of this zip code has surged from 40,000 to 65,000 in the past 25 years. And this is all driven by the densely new housing development in South Shore. When I moved here 2 years ago and driving in my car, the car maps will not even show that there is a road here. So all these development of 25,000 people has happened in the last 25 years. The proposed well, which is a mega pad, will sit in this community, and it will become a nidus of exposing thousands of children, pregnant women, and elderly to significant health and safety risk. Decisions must reflect these facts of today's population realities and not assumptions from the decades ago. Even a low probability blowout like the one happened in Galton or wildfire could result in catastrophic loss of life. The sunlight long combined with the other operations in the Lowry Range cap would add to the cumulative health burden on an already overexposed population. The SB 19181 requires the protection of public health, safety, and welfare. This is not a discretionary thing. It is your statutory duty. My wife and I moved here 2 years ago to help with our grandchildren. My daughter came to Colorado a few years earlier and had a mild asthma. Today, she needs 2 injections every month just to breathe in our already polluted air. My grandson was born with a congenital disorder called MHE and required multiple surgeries. He has 22 bone tumors. When he was told this time he need 4th surgery, he said, I was shocked, but at least it's not cancer. No child should ever have to say those words. He is immunocompromised, just like many other vulnerable children who would be exposed to benzene and other carcinogen from this project. This location is not protective of public health, not for my family, not for thousands of Colorado families who live here. Please deny the sunlight long. And at the end, I would quote C.S. Lewis that commissioners, you can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. Please protect us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for presenting to us today. Did we find Ms. Eppersbucker?
We were unable to get Ms. Ebersberger to accept our invitation to be a panelist.
Okay. All right. Well, commissioners, that concludes the public comment portion of the docket 241200. No, sorry, that's the wrong one. No, that's right. 2412000313. And so that concludes the business for today. We are going to adjourn and we return tomorrow morning at 10:30 for the presentations from the applicant and the other folks that are parties to this docket. So with that, I suppose I would move to adjourn until 10:30 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, thanks everybody for presenting today. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll see you tomorrow, folks. Thanks.
Okie dokie. Okie frickin' dokie. Okay. We are now at the end. There are some really powerful public comments. And I'm still processing a bit myself. Some very emotional ones there at the end. All the public comments today I guess technically I was away from my computer for 2 of them, but I'm pretty sure every single public comment was against this fracking pad. And we heard so many reasons why we shouldn't put the largest fracking pad of Colorado's history. Was it less than 2 miles or around 2 miles from the Aurora Reservoir? And in some cases, chill dogs, I know it's upsetting. It was like 3,185 feet away from like where people live, which is like the law, I guess technically, for certain distances is like 3,000 feet. So you're like 4% or like 150 feet, like just past the law. But so many stories of immunocompromised children, of elderly people who have advocated for their family to move near them and are now in a situation where they chose to raise and start a family in this area, in a situation with their health, their investments into their house, their investments into community are now all at risk. And studies by public universities that showcase the health risks out to 8 miles, which I want to say is like tens of thousands of people that put them and technically their kids or different affected groups that are more at risk in harm's way. Additionally, I forgot who brought this up, but we're in November and we're having 60, 70-degree days and we haven't seen snow once. Climate change is something that we all face as humanity. And it's something where we need to make a change. We need to produce less carbon. We need to put less carbon, methane, chemicals, oil, gas into the air. It's bad for local communities and health, but also long-term agricultural impacts, weather impacts, summer heat waves. So that's further energy risks that we take on additionally if we, over the summer, have to blast air conditioning to even be able to work. That is a cost to us that these companies don't have to help at all with. They can export their gas, they can keep oil and gas prices where they want them here domestically, and ship out and profit. And like someone said, they can hang out on their yachts, they can stay hidden away, they can have their private houses away from these things, while putting the cost on the American people and local communities, and it's not okay. And the communities have been fighting this. The public comments overwhelmingly against. They're very strong public comments, backed by data, science, health outcomes. And we're gonna see what they think and vote on. I think we were missing 2 commissioners. It's a 7-commissioner panel. 2 of them were like somewhere though. They didn't even drop in. Where are they? If you can't join for public comment of your appointed role, you should be fired, unless it's the most extreme of emergencies or issues. And outside of that, you should probably still try. Just join for some. The next 2 days, I believe we hear from industry tomorrow. They get a presentation day starting at 10:30. ECMC website hearings. You'll find the Zoom link. I actually have a conflict tomorrow, so I can't join. I I'm like leaving the house at like 6:45 a.m. so it's hard to even like set up my computer to stream. The industry presentations are always so interesting because they're like cherry pick facts, talk about what they want to talk about. They cherry pick scientists that either work for them or have a connection with them. But hopefully their commissioners ask some really hard-hitting questions, and don't let them get away with like an easy presentation. And then on Friday, we get to hear from a community advocacy organization called Save the Aurora Reservoir. They use the acronym STAR, who will put on their presentation, and then we get to the final vote. So I'll be back on Friday. I don't have a conflict that day. I was double check. I think I'm going to something in the evening, but it should be over by then. Yeah, at 4. Yeah. And we'll find out. But this, the Aurora Reservoir, provides, it's like millions of gallons of drinking water for the local area. Part of it goes to Denver. Water in Colorado, we're a headwater state. We have water's life. Yeah, putting this many different oil drilling sites, like, you threaten the area. You underground, you're pumping liquids out, you are you're mixing chemicals with water, you're trying to store that someplace or trying to clean it up afterwards, but chemicals I think are still unknown. They gotta just hide what chemicals they have in their process. It's a very risky development, and we should be seeing less developments regardless. For our future, for our climate, for our state, like for legal reasons, like we have a clean energy plan that we're not like getting closer to our goals. So I guess, yeah, be back Friday. We'll do further debrief and watching, but some very powerful testimony. And like, even if they come from like oil and gas background, these commissioners, they approved 90 something more of sites. Like, hearing that many people back to back, hearing their personal stories, I think triggers in your brain like, oh, I'm leaning this way, but should I reconsider? Some of them might be like huge supporters of the industry, but I think even them have to now consider those personal stories. And like at the last public hearing, only 2 commissioners showed up. That was an in-person one. But this time, 5 of them were there, having those considerations, hearing from the community, and ideally in the next few days that all 7 of them show up. And then vote to deny. Alright, I've got some other things I wanted to do. I was able to get some emails done, but thankfully I had some time and privilege to watch that today. Thank you so much to those who showed up, gave comment. I almost gave comment. I was kind of like mulling around what I would say. I don't technically live in the Aurora area. I have friends who live in that area. I mean, I've walked the Aurora Reservoir. It's a very pretty reservoir. But besides some of like the health facts, I wasn't quite sure what to say that like that would have added. I mean, I'm sure I could have put something together. But I'm happy I did this. Helped listen to what other people had to say, help reflect. Hopefully this video helps reach more people. They do post their meetings after the fact, but I didn't know what the delay was, if they do it right away. And then they also had some other business today, so I wanted to get just a public comment just on this. I was able to get done and ready just in time to see the start. So yeah, thank you all to those who spoke. Very compelling. Not one public comment for. Depending on what you vote, it's going to be really easy or really hard to say that they actually consider public opinion. And we just got to hope that they're like brave to at the very least delay or determination, put some more time. But honestly, just deny it, because who are they benefiting here? You're choosing who gets hurt, and you're choosing who gets benefits. And more consideration and should be put into these projects. All right, my name is Braden Gill. This is the community-driven channel where we talk about public good, social impact, Colorado news. We're out of here for today. We'll check back in Friday. I wanted to do a stream later today, and maybe I'll come back later today as well. Around some upcoming events I am working on. And I want to do fun streams. I want to do Spanish lessons, get more comfortable being online, being live, kind of just learning streaming technology. But I want to do more with language and Spanish. Learning Spanish live maybe will force me to be consistent if I'm like live streaming at least once a week, like learning a language. And some of the other design work, artwork, and the card game I've been working on. So maybe I'll. I was planning on using some of my time today to prep to do a live stream. I think Wednesdays might actually be a good consistent day for me. But we'll have to tune in later to see if I'll do another one today. But at the very least, Friday for coverage on this again. I'll be back. All right. Have a good week, y'all. All right. Heading out.